Okay, we're live.
We are live. Okay, let me jump over here and grab this link. Yeah, I'm still not seeing it on the. Says we're live. I'm just not seeing it. My thing's probably got a reboot. Okay, there it is. Now I see it. Oh my God, why is this not showing up on here? This is so weird. I'm seeing it in like the mainstream, but when I go to the personal page, it's only showing the last one. There's like freaking demons in the system tonight. Demons in StreamYard, demons in the G Drive, demons on Facebook. I'm still not seeing it on my personal feed. What the fuck?
Well, we don't stream directly to your personal. You have to copy
No,
then
I'm
paste
talking
that.
about.
That's where you
I meant to
post.
say on the Dare Me. That's the whole point of what I'm doing. I'm streaming. We're
Okay.
streaming to
Hang
the
on.
Dare Me
Hang on.
Facebook page,
Hang on.
and I'm
Hang
on
on.
that page, and I'm trying to get the
All
link.
right.
I can put
So
it on
you.
my personal,
Okay.
and I'm not.
So I just looked at it. I'm clicked on the link and it's there. I'm seeing
Well,
it.
that's what I'm saying. I'm seeing it in my Dare Me feed, but when I go to the Dare Me page, it's not there. It's so weird. There's something in the system tonight that is not working properly because I'm even there right now and I'm still not seeing it. So fucking weird. Whatever. Let me just go to the fucking. I'm like so. I'm over it tonight. We haven't even fucking started. Oh my god. I see we got people watching too. Hey. Uh.
Yeah, it's on the Facebook. So okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Something must be weird with my. Maybe it's something in my cache or my cookies in my phone. I don't know. Working on pasting. The, oh my God. Okay, there we go. Almost ready, Dean. Okay, let me just go over to Insta. Put a quick post there, and then we'll get going. We waited this damn long. It don't fucking much matter. We are now live. Link in the bio. Boom. Douche. And bada boom. Oh, good God. Are you kidding me? Hang on one second. Okay. Let me go back over here again. Yeah, phone is acting really weird tonight. That over. And there's that. I just want to do one more thing and then I'll be ready to go. Yeah, this is so freaking weird, Dean. It's just so weird. I got the live stream in my Dare Me feed, but when I go to my Dare Me like page in the profile picture, it says we're live. But when I scroll down, it's not there. It's going back to the February 18th episode. It's the weirdest damn thing. I don't know what the fuck's going on. It's just weird. Okay, well, in any case, let's go ahead and do this show. Episode 50. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Hey, everyone. Should be a fun show. Okay, Dean, whenever you're ready, let's do this. On average, just in the United States, about 220 people die every single day from an opiate overdose. And by the time we finish this show, 8 to 10 people are going to die from an opiate overdose. If we get even one person, one viewer with this program that we might be able to help with some of the information that's shared on here, then it's all worth it.
The outrageous stuff that you do that raises the eyebrows of some people, you always say it's a joke. It's my sense of humor.
Well, I don't mean to say it's a joke, and I mean I don't mean to undermine it and say I don't mean any of it. It's, you know, you're supposed to laugh at it, but I do think that people take much of what I do much too seriously. I think that if you miss the irony in many of the things I say, that you do miss the whole picture. I'm very serious about what I do too. On the other hand, I do think that there's a message in a lot of the things I do. Basically, what I hope more than anything is that people see that what I'm trying to do is to get people to sort of get over their hang-ups and stuff, and to be able to laugh at themselves as I laugh at myself. So.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Dare Me podcast. Peace, it's your old pal Glenn Victor, and shout out to that girl Madonna in that little open we just did there. An interview that she conducted a long time ago, and I thought it was apropos to tonight's 50th episode of the Dare Me podcast that we have titled Authenticity. And
oh God, let me go in here and act like
there, I'm telling you, Dean, there are demons in the system tonight because that wasn't supposed to come on. And speaking of my old pal Dean Baker, our co-host and producer, let's just go ahead and bring him in the show right now. There he is.
Okay.
Hey Dean, what's happening, bro? How's things in Orlando?
Well, technically not great, but you know, we'll bear through, you know.
I'm saying, man, yeah, well, in keeping with our theme of tonight's show, authenticity, let's see, we are 45 minutes past our scheduled time that we begin the Dare Me podcast every week. And the reason is because of what both Dean and I just said, technical difficulties, demon in the system. That happens sometimes, especially when you're broadcasting over the internet. You know, the internet is not a perfect science, if you will. And so in any case, y'all, yeah, we had some technical difficulties, but hey, it is what it is. We are live now, and everything seems to be working properly. That video just popped up that we will play again later in the show. Wasn't supposed to play right there, but so who knows what could happen, man? As I often say on this show, anything can happen live, and it often does. So hey, man, you know, maybe one more reason to stay tuned to our podcast tonight, because God only knows what could happen. But yeah, man, coming to you live here from Sacramento, California, on the West Coast, where it is 6:47 right now, and Dean is coming to us live on the East Coast from Orlando, Florida, where it's now 9:47. And so, as I was saying, y'all, This is episode 50 of the Dare Me podcast. Man, I just can hardly believe it's been 50 episodes. We got 2 more. I'm going to be honest, I'm looking forward to it. 2 more live editions of the Dare Me podcast till we reach that goal I made, that I was committed to doing 1 full year of the Dare Me podcast and doing it live every Sunday. Now, we have played some pre-recorded episodes at different times. We just did that recently. We were not actually live for a few weeks in a row because we had the NFC Championship football game. We had the Super Bowl. We had a power outage due to bad weather and storms here in Sacramento. And, we always have had a show on at 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern time, every single Sunday, with the exception of a couple times like tonight, where we had some technical difficulties and we're running a little bit late. But we have run a show every single Sunday night for now, including tonight, 50 weeks in a row. 50 weeks in a row. And we are live right now on half dozen Facebook pages, half dozen YouTube channels. We're live on LinkedIn. We're live on X, which of course used to be Twitter. We're live on Twitch. We're live on Threads. Bloody, 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 blah. You get it. And we're going to do it 2 more weeks, a full year, 52 weeks in a row, y'all. And then we're going to take a break for a while. We've talked about it the last few episodes about the future of the Dare Me podcast. And we're going to take a break for a little bit, but then we will be back with Dare Me 2.0, the 2.0 version. We're not going to go live anymore. We may go live from time to time for maybe like a special occasion or, at an event or on the road or something like that. I don't know. But the live thing is more of a pain in the ass than you might think. And it's almost like it's more work than it's really worth. We have had, as I've talked about many times on this podcast, and we've shown some of the analytics we receive from just YouTube alone, where we've had over 25,000 people view our Dare Me podcast YouTube channel. Just freaking blows my mind that we have reached that many people with our YouTube channel. It's crazy to me. 90% of the people that tune in to this show or our reels, our shorts, the YouTube channel, do so with the recorded version. We have had quite a few people tuned in live that were looking for information on the topics we talk about, which I'm going to elaborate on in a little bit here. And we've been able to help some people too with good information. We've helped more people after the shows are over than we ever have live. We have had people join in our chat room live. We've had people call into the show live. We've been able to provide good information to people that were looking for information on the topics we talk about. I'll also say we've helped 10 times more many people with information we provided after we've gone live, because I do get a lot of DMs, a lot of messages. You get the idea. And so in any case, yeah, man, I don't mean to belabor the issue, but being authentic, it's a hell of a lot more work doing this show live than, quite frankly, I think is worth it. It's kind of been a thrill. It's always a thrill when you're live on the air, and that whole thing. Especially doing a show like this where we're literally live around the freaking world. Our second biggest audience is out of the UK, which blows my mind. And that's, again, according to YouTube analytics. That's not our analytics. That's directly from YouTube. Our biggest audience is, of course, is the United States, but we get listeners and viewers from Canada, down in South and Central America, other parts of Europe. You get the idea. We literally are worldwide. We've had people from Saudi Arabia, my boy Asim, who called in from Saudi Arabia live on the show several weeks back, telling us he watches and listens to the Dare Me podcast live from Saudi Arabia. So, it's been really cool, I guess, is the point I'm making, going live. But again, 90% of all those viewers and listeners I mentioned come across our stuff in the recorded version. And so it's going to make life a lot easier on yours truly, as well as our co-host and producer and friend Dean, and give us a lot more flexibility to record this podcast during the week at whatever time is convenient for the both of us, and then post it. And we will stick with our regular times once we start Dare Me 2.0. We're going to stick with that Sunday night, 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern time. At least for now, everything is, subject to change, but those times seem to work quite well. For a variety of reasons I won't get into right now. But in any case, I'm not even sure how long we're going to take a break for. I had talked about continuing to broadcast the 52, versions of the show we already did at the regular time until we come back with 2.0. That's subject to change too. Not even quite sure we're going to do that, but they're there. They're there on the YouTube channel, the Dare Me Podcast YouTube channel. If you're watching, I see, we got, some people in the viewing room right now. If you come across the recorded version, and maybe you're not on the Dare Me Podcast YouTube channel, by all means, go there, click on the videos tab, and they're all there. You can watch or listen to them anytime, and that'll continue to be that way. So, like I said, I'm not quite sure, it's worth the broadcasting them, rebroadcasting them at our usual time. But then on the other hand, I thought, well, we're going to be playing recorded versions of new episodes anyway, so what's the difference? I'm not sure. I don't mean to get sidetracked on all that, but tonight's just kind of a weird show altogether because, like I said, we had some technical difficulties getting started a little bit late. And all that stuff. But in any case, it is what it is. So we're going to move right along, y'all. Like I said, on the front end, decided to start this edition of the show with that cool video clip of that hometown girl, my fellow Detroiter and hometown Motown girl, Madonna, for a couple of reasons. One, I saw her live last night. Yeah, she's on her celebration tour and played live here in Sacramento last night downtown at the Golden One Center. Went down to the show. I was really on the fence about going for a couple of reasons I'll talk about, but I'm so glad I did. And went with my sponsor, Shay Shay, which I'm going to show a picture of in just a little bit of us there and some videos from the show. So I thought that video we played on the front end was, again, apropos to tonight's show because I just saw her last night, and also because she speaks to this topic of authenticity. And, as I've talked about on this podcast before, and some of the videos I posted on social media, that I've done some things and said some things for shock value, to garner attention, to try to get people's attention. Like, oh my God, what the hell did that guy just say? Or what is he doing? To try to get people to tune in. Whether they needed assistance or information on the topics we talk about or not, or maybe to provide information for someone maybe they know that could benefit from the content that we provide. So yeah, did a lot of stuff for like shock value, which is kind of like what they talked to Madonna about. She was like, hey man, it's all a big joke. I'm just trying to get people to maybe get over some of their hang-ups, is the word she used, or the phrase she used. And that certainly has been part of our effort with this podcast, getting people over the stigma, that catchphrase, that buzz phrase that's out there now, fuck the stigma, having to do with addiction, with mental health and things to that nature. And man, if we just bulldozed right over that stigma those stigmas with this podcast, because we do talk about them blatantly, openly, honestly. There's definitely no stigma involved with those topics here. And so, yeah, I liked that little clip we played right out of our open there of that girl, Madonna. So anyhow, with all that said, y'all, quick introduction to the show and what it's all about, in case you haven't figured it out yet. Yeah, we talk about drugs, we talk about addiction, recovery, enlightenment, music, talk a lot about music, and we're going to talk about it tonight. And we also talk about fitness and exercise. I always like to flex my muzzle because, man, I'm so proud I have muscles again, because I didn't for a long time because I got caught up in addiction. And yeah, there's those hashtags that Dean just put up on the screen. And if you can't, tell and haven't figured it out, those are all, acronyms for the name Dare Me. And the name of this podcast, Dare Me, is all came, to light, so to speak, or came to mind when we thought about doing this, of Dare Me to come out, and fuck the stigma and talk openly about my struggles with addiction. Tonight, I'm not going to go into my long story. I've done it over and over and over in the past 49 and now tonight 50 episodes of the show. Told my story in great detail and will more moving forward. But the short version is, yeah, man, I'm an addict, I've been struggling with that shit my whole life, man. I mean, literally since I was a little kid. Got clean in my 20s, stayed clean for years, for like almost 17 years, had a bad relapse, lasted about 5 years, got clean again, stayed clean about 6 years, and then had a horrible relapse on opioid pain medication. Broke my ankle, should have known better. They prescribed the shit, took it anyways, and it didn't end pretty. And good Lord willing, I'm so happy, so proud, yet humble to say that in a couple weeks, y'all, on March 11th, your old pal Glenn Victor will have not one, not two, but 3 years clean again. And oh my God, I'm looking forward to it. When you're coming up on them clean time anniversaries, man, you start to get a little antsy, a little squirrely, has been my experience, and others have told me too. And I'm kind of looking forward to just getting it over with, getting it behind me and moving on, but it is a milestone. It's a big fucking deal, as we say, being caught in the grips of, that addiction is horrible, man. It was horrible. It was the worst thing I ever been through in my life, getting off of that shit. And I'm so happy and grateful I was able to, with the help of countless others whose names I won't even start to mention, because there's been so many people, and part of my healing process, as I've said on this podcast before, has been doing this podcast. I was talking to that boy Shebang today, who's been a guest on our show several times, and we'll try to get him on again. If not before we wrap up these live versions, we'll have him on again once we do the 2.0 version. But I was telling him today, it's like we start talking about different topics, and I was like, man, sometimes I think about this podcast, and I ask myself, God damn, man. Why did I get into this whole thing? Was it all ego shit? Was I trying to do the whole me, ooh, me, look at me thing and the be that guy, and all that? Or was I truly trying to help others, like what we talk about every episode of this podcast, like what we put in the intro? If we can help even one person, then it's all worth it. Is it a little bit of both? Maybe there is some ego shit in there. We had that boy Tyler Ullum from Moving Forward Music on a while back, which shout out Tyler if you see this. We caught up not too long ago, and congratulations to him, by the way, and Nikki for the birth of their new baby, man. That's so fucking cool. But anyway, if you remember, we had Tyler on, and we played a video of his that he did called Agoraphobia, man. And he said, me and Shivang were talking about it today. He's like, bro, you're doing God's work with this podcast, man. Keep doing you, or something like that. I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said. And so I brought that up to Shivang today. I said, oh my God, man. It was a pretty powerful statement to make to somebody that, man, you're doing like God's work. And sometimes, man, it's like, I think to myself, like, what the hell? How did I get myself into this? Like, where did this come from? Because believe me, a couple of years ago, this was the farthest thing from my mind. And going back 3 years ago, when I was still using and kicking, I wasn't thinking about doing something like this. Well, as Dean said to me when I talked to him about doing this for the first time, once you ring that bell, man, that's it. There ain't no unringing it. And I made that commitment once I decided to do this thing, that we were going to do it for a whole fucking year, or what's the point? Why bother? And we're 2 weeks, 2 shows, 2 episodes away from me fulfilling that commitment, man. And I'm so fucking looking forward to it, and proud of myself, to be honest. And that's not me, being egotistical. That's me saying, yeah, man, I fucking made my mind up to do something. I made a commitment to it. I've manifested this in my mind, and it's going to be accomplished come hell or high water. We're going to get them next 2 episodes in, and then I can kind of sit back, take a deep breath, do a little breathing, like, okay. I was joking with my kids. I sent them a text that I think once this is all said and done, I'm going to look back and be like Steve Urkel and go, did I do that? This whole thing, like, oh my God. But hey, it is what it is, and I don't know. Shivang, going back to what I was saying, Shivang said to me, you know what, Glenn, if there is a little ego involved in there, that's okay. I don't know. I guess maybe there is, but like I said, if it makes me, that's why I said to Shivang, I go, you know what, bro, at the end of the day, if it makes me feel good, it's been part of my healing process, even if there's some ego shit mixed in there, but it also has helped some other people, which I sincerely do hope that we have, and no, we have helped some other people, then it's a win-win, so I hope, and I think, and I do believe it's been a good thing doing this, for this past 50 weeks, and looking forward to getting those next 2 out of the way, as I've said, and taking a break, step back, take a deep breath, look at the big picture, regroup. I'm working with a consultant now who's been a guest on our show. I'll just go ahead and say, last week I talked about it. I didn't even mention his name, but I'm working with that boy Anonymous, who is Caskey's producer. And, he does coaching for artists, mostly music artists. But we talked at length about this podcast and all. And he's got some ideas, and I've got some ideas. And so, we've kind of left it at, let's circle back around after I get, these 52 live episodes out of the way, and take a little break for a little while. And then we're going to start working on that 2.0 version, which again will be recorded versions, also going to keep them real tight. I talked about it last week on the show that, I just fucking go till I run out of gas sometimes, man. There's never a time frame on these things. Sometimes we go an hour and a half, 2.5, 3.5 hours, it's just like there's no time clock on it, which has been nice in a way. Having worked in radio and TV for so many years during my working life, my careers, where you always had to hit that time clock right on the dot and all that other shit, I kind of enjoyed just doing this show, and fuck, we'll quit when we feel like it. We're not like we're having to hit any hard times or whatever. But we also understand that when people watch and listen to podcasts, you're not going to keep anybody's attention for 2, 3, or 3.5 hours or whatever the hell. I know for myself, I listen to and watch other podcasts, and sometimes, they'll keep my attention for a half hour. If it's really interesting, maybe I'll even go a full 45 minutes to an hour. But most of the time, I'll listen for a while, come back later, pick it up where I left off, and maybe bit piece it. But, as I've also said with this podcast, man, it ain't for everybody. We hope we provide entertaining content for anybody that may come across it, whether they're struggling with addiction or not, or have a family member struggling or not. But at the end of the day, when you boil it down to the nitty gritty, what we really have hoped all along that this podcast would be about and who we really would reach is people like myself when I was looking for information to get off of opiates, because I tried so hard to do that shit by myself. And I was online looking for information. I would Google things, how to get through opiate withdrawals. I would go on YouTube, how to get through opiate withdrawals. And I came across quite a bit of information. As I always say on this podcast, there's good stuff out there. And I would watch these videos, and sometimes they were shorties. And by the time they were over, I'd be like starting to feel inspired, and I'd kind of get this feeling of like, God, I wish there was more, true addict fashion, like one is never enough, right? And wanting more. And so where I'm going with that, if you haven't figured it out yet, is I've thought to myself, well, hey, if we go to 2.5, 3.5 hours, maybe that's not such a bad thing for somebody who's looking for information about how to kick dope. Because when you're kicking, oh my God, the time moves at a snail's pace. And you're going through all those horrible, horrible opiate withdrawals, man. It's good to have something to watch and listen to that can be inspiring, which we hope we have been. And things to that nature, and not just sitting there fucking vegging out on Netflix or whatever the fuck, because people do sit there when they're going through withdrawals or laying in bed with no fucking energy. Yeah, if you're one of them people, I get it, bro. I've been there, done that, bought the motherfucking t-shirt, sweating like crazy, got the restless arm and leg syndrome going and every other goddamn thing, and you're just scrolling. You're like scrolling TikTok, hooked on video, YouTube, whatever the fuck. Hopefully, if that might be you come across our stuff and we get your attention for 2.5, 3 hours, or however long some of them previous episodes have gone. So anyway, I'm kind of getting like way off topic there, but the point I'm making is when we come back with the 2.0 version, it's all going to be packaged up in a nice little box with a nice little pretty bow on it. And we're going to try to stick to that 1 fucking hour, so maybe if somebody tunes into our podcast, we get their attention for the full episode of the show and do it in 1 hour. And then also by doing them pre-recorded, going to make life a hell of a lot easier for me and Dean, because we can do it whatever time's convenient for the both of us during the week. As you can imagine, man, my Sunday nights and Dean's have been hijacked for a whole year. Now we haven't been able to do anything on Sunday nights, and not to mention, the weekend and leading up to it, especially for me, because I do all the prep for the show and the planning and everything, so I hate to sound like I'm complaining and I'm fucking complainer and being negative. That's not my intention at all. I'm just being authentic that, yeah, man, it's really taken up a lot more of my time than I ever really realized it would. That old saying, man, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. And then once you get it, you might not know what to do with it, And I thought about calling it a day with this podcast after the year was over, but I don't know, man. Something's driving me to keep it going, even though we're going to do it in a different way for the 2.0 version. And I sincerely think and hope, because sometimes I question my own motives, that it's not ego shit. Yeah, it feels good doing this, man. It feels good, when people acknowledge, especially if we do a good episode and the good feedback I get, yeah, it makes me feel good. There's a little ego boost there. Fuck, who wouldn't, But I really sincerely hope that that's not what's driving me fully here. I really, really sincerely do hope that we are helping people and can continue to help people, and that I'm not being blind to what is really driving me here. Going back to like what my boy Tyler said, doing God's work, and I don't mean that in any pompous or egotistical way. you know Anytime I feel like that you can help somebody, especially with a topic like addiction, where you're helping saves people's lives, man, I'd like to think that maybe we are doing God's work here with this show a little bit. So, anyways, with all that said, man, I got sidetracked just when that little video clip played that wasn't supposed to. I took a left turn and went on for God fucking half hour longer, 20 minutes than I had anticipated with all that. But anyways, so there you go, man. That's the introduction to the show, and I thought we would talk tonight about authenticity. From week to week, each week, sometimes I have no idea what the hell the topic's going to be, what we're going to talk about, if we're going to have a guest or not, because we've had lots of great guests over the past year, by the way, too. And thank you so much. Shout out to all our guests. But anyway, I had all these videos loaded into our drive that have been just sitting there for the better part of almost a year that I came across online. I thought, oh, I'd like to use that on the show at some time. Oh, I'd like to use that on the show at some time. And they've been sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And Dean, when he's loading everything, probably gets frustrated. Like, I have something next to it, not using this week. And then they sit there all this time. And so tonight I kind of thought, well, you know what? We're getting near the end. If I'm going to use them, I need to fucking use them, and I kind of feel like I'm cleaning out the closet a little bit tonight with some of the videos we're going to play. And so I just, when I compiled all these that I captured, having seen them on the internet, TikTok, YouTube, whatever the fuck, I just started compiling them. I just got this idea about being authentic. And that's something that I have said all along with this podcast, is that, man, I want to be authentic as I can possibly be. And vulnerable, man, that's something I will say. There's that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I say bullshit, man, because I have been taught some new tricks by some younger guys. I mentioned that guy Anonymous, man. Marlon Sorrentino's his name. I know he wouldn't mind me putting it out there. He's got it all over social media, but his stage name is Anonymous. And he's a producer and road manager and consultant and confidant for that boy Caskey, the international rapper, music star, who's also kind of sort of a buddy of mine. I've met him a few times. I went to their big music summit, which, by the way, they're doing another one in June that we're going to plug coming up down the road here. But anyhow, point I'm making is that's one of the things I learned from them guys. I mean, they're grown ass men, but for a guy like, I'm fucking 62 years old, learning from guys half my age, like that old saying, from the mouths of babes, man. And when I went to that summit, I talked about being vulnerable as an artist. It was mainly geared toward people in music, but I had talked to them about this podcast and other things. And it's true, man, as an artist, whatever your art may be, you gotta be vulnerable. People are gonna judge. There's always fucking haters, no matter what it is you do. You can't be preoccupied with, who's gonna be hating on your stuff or you personally or whatever. You just gotta do you. And as they taught me too, and I knew this already, but it was good to be reminded of it, to play to your crowd, play to your own crowd. What are we so fucking worried about what all these other people are going to think? Whatever the fuck. So anyway, kind of getting off topic a little bit again there, but the point I'm making is that all played into my thought process of our topic for this week's particular show of being authentic, authenticity. And I like to think that I have been as authentic as I could be on this particular podcast, this whole podcast. I'll also say there have been times where I've thought to myself afterward, like, oh, good God, here I am playing this fucking role again of trying to be like that guy. And it's been a thin line of balance there because, I made a living, I made a career in radio and television where, when that light goes on or that mic gets hot, you turn on like, hey, welcome to the show. That guy, news at 11 or traffic every 6 minutes. I'm taking a look at it, and you have this scripted, thing in your mind of how you're supposed to talk, and you sound like that guy on the radio, and I have tried so hard not to do that on this podcast. I literally have consciously tried not to do that. And I think for the most part, I've been pretty successful at being authentic and not turning into that fucking pre-programmed guy, radio TV voice guy or whatever. But certainly it's slipped in many times on this podcast because I do go back and watch these. I watch them all one time at some point during the week. And I do that for a couple of reasons. Most important of which is to critique it and go look at it and say, ooh, that was pretty cringe. Oh, good God. Or I didn't like the way we did that. Oh, I like the way we did that. Let's see, so it's more from a critique perspective, I guess, to see how we did and things to that nature. And for the most part, I think we do pretty good with it. A point I'm making is there's been times where I go, oh my God, I just fell right back into that role of radio guy, TV guy, when I'm really, truly trying to be authentic on here. And I talk openly about topics that can be sensitive sometimes, and certainly have pushed some sensitive buttons of some people that I know, and others I don't know that I've gotten feedback from. Very, very, very little shade. We've gotten some shade on topics, one of which we're going to be talking about tonight, Kratom. We've gotten some shade over talking about that, and I'll address it in a little bit. But most of the feedback we've gotten has all been very, very positive. But anyway, with all that said, y'all, yeah, I've tried to be authentic on here. But there have been times where I've gone back and looked at the show and it's like, oh my God, like the old saying, I am an actor and all the world is my stage. Well, I'm trying not to be an actor on this show. I'm trying to be the authentic Glenn. So with all that said, y'all, let's get into some of the content that I compiled for tonight's show. We've got some slides. We've got some videos. We're going to talk about a few stories in the news, the opioid crisis news. We do that every show. If you're a regular viewer of the podcast, you already know. If you're new to the program, yeah, all 50 episodes, we talk about the opioid crisis in the news, the drug problem in the news, not just opioids. That's kind of our focus. But as you'll see, even tonight, we talk about other drugs in the news too, and this whole drug crisis. I had a really cool shout out we're going to do tonight. And then we always try to wrap the show up with little humor. We just show a few funny memes that I come across online throughout the course of the week, and I'll capture. I got a shit ton of them, and I think we got 3 tonight we're going to talk about. But so anyway, with all that said, let's go ahead and bring that boy Dean Baker back on the screen if we can. Dean, I know you've been sitting patiently. Let me kind of, go into what the show is all about and update the future of the show and, talk about tonight's topic and stuff. But, sometimes I feel like I neglect you there. I know you're in the background holding it down and handling all the technical stuff, but I also like to check in with you, man. How's things going with you there in Orlando? You have a good week?
It's been a good week. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know last week we talked about Bike Week is coming up and that you're planning on heading over there. Are you still planning on going over to Bike Week? And
that's the thought. I sometimes the universe is working against me on some of that stuff. So
well, again, without going into a long story about it, I know you kind of sort of still recuperating from an injury you had where you talked with us about it on the podcast. podcast, and you broke your leg, and that had a little bit of an effect on your ability to get around, but that you've recuperated quite nicely, and you've already been back out riding again, right?
Oh yeah, I was out riding, like 4 or 5 hours yesterday.
And so, for Dean, for our viewers that maybe don't know, you have a YouTube channel where people can go along for the ride, where you actually have like a GoPro camera in your helmet and film some of your rides. What's it called? Honda Trailer?
Yeah, it's the Honda Trail Traveler. Yes.
Yeah, that is a cool channel, man. And I've watched several of your rides, and it's really fun. So anyway, well, hey, we'll have to get an update from you maybe next week. And just a heads up, by the way, Dean, and for all of our viewers or listeners, and I see we got a couple more in the viewing room. Welcome to y'all that are watching live. We always appreciate people tuning in live. Like I said, most of the people that watch or listen to our podcast come across the recorded version, but we always like to do a shout out to those that join in live. So anyway, last week, Dean, if you remember, we had my son, G Money. We call him G Money, Glenn Jr., but G's his nickname. Came to us live on the telephone from Honolulu, Hawaii, where he lives now. Yeah, I had been dying to kind of let the cat out of the bag because he's been living there for probably about a month and a half now. But, I didn't want to steal his thunder. I thought I'd wait until the time was right. And sure enough, he called in and talked to us live on the air for about a half hour last week. And, we finally, made the announcement that, Glenn is living in Honolulu, Hawaii now. Without getting into a long story about it, Glenn's an OSHA safety guy. And he grew up in Orlando, and he's worked on projects in O-Town, the biggest tourist destination in the world. He's worked on projects in New York City. He worked on a bridge project there. He's mostly involved in construction during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. Then he worked on a project for a few years, couple of projects in Miami for a few years, and he got an offer he couldn't refuse to work on this project he's involved in now in Honolulu. And so anyway, where I'm going with all that is we talked about, he's been bugging me to come visit him, which I'm dying to go. I can't wait. And that we're going to maybe do a show from Hawaii is what we talked about last week. Well, guess what? It's happening. It is on. And we are going to do.
All right.
Yeah, I booked my flight. It's all set. The whole 9 yards. I'm going to be there for a week. And so this is Dean's hearing about this for the first time, too. We are, in fact, going to do the last episode of our live Dare Me podcast, episode 52 from Honolulu, Hawaii. And in addition to that, we will be celebrating the 1 year anniversary of the Dare Me podcast and the 3 year anniversary of yours truly being drug free. So it's going to be a special night. 2 weeks from tonight, y'all, will be live, the Aloha version of the Dare Me podcast, live from Honolulu, Hawaii. And we'll have my son, G Money, live on there with us. We'll be bringing the live version of the Dare Me podcast to a conclusion. And we'll be celebrating my 3 year clean anniversary. Man, I'm trying not to get filled up talking about it because it's all coming up. So anyway, Dean, we'll work out. Hopefully we don't have any kind of technical difficulties like we did tonight. We'll have to maybe jump on the day before and get it all worked out. I'm going to take some of my equipment there with me. And of course, G's got his, laptop and his mic and set up there, So we'll make sure that, we're all set up ahead of time, and hopefully it should all go smoothly. And I'm also anticipating we're going to have several other guests on that particular episode who have been guests on the show throughout the course of the past year, and maybe even a couple surprise guests and others as well, as we bring the Dare Me podcast 1.0 live version to a close, y'all. I'm looking forward to it. So anyway, Dean, heads up. Yeah, man, 2 weeks from tonight, live from Aloha, Honolulu, Hawaii. Next week, we'll be doing the regular old version. I'll be right here in Sacramento. Dean there in Orlando, as always, and haven't come up with a topic yet. Maybe have a guest. I'm not sure. Like I said, man, sometimes this thing just takes on a life of its own, and a day or two before the show, it all comes together. It always does seem to come together. So anyhow, with all that said, yeah, Dean, I'm glad that things are going well for you there in Orlando. When we do have, the show on after you go to Bike Week, maybe we can talk about it and maybe even capture a little bit of footage we could show for any of our viewers or listeners who've never been to Bike Week before, because it is a party, man. It is so much fun. I have to acknowledge, though, Dean, I will say, man, there were years there during some of my relapses when I went to Bike Week, and oh my God, man, you go to places like the Boot Hill and you're drinking and partying and shit, it's like, well, I guess I'm not riding or driving home tonight. I gotta find a hotel now because people do like to party. And so then you go back and you're living clean and sober again. Oh my God, it can be a temptation, man. And then, for guys like me, and I've talked openly on it, this podcast, it ain't for everybody, but I do like drinking NA beers, non-alcohol beers like O'Doul's or Heineken Zeros or whatever. And when you go to Bike Week regularly each year, which bars sell NA beers and which don't, because not all of them do. And the Boot Hill does sell O'Doul's. At least they used to. I don't know if they still do, but that's always kind of a nice thing. If you're going to go to Bike Week and you're living clean and sober, man, shout out to all those bars over there that, accommodate those of us that like drinking the NA beers, So anyway, though, man, I hope you have a ball when you go over there. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, so let's talk about this. We've kind of incorporated this into the show for the past several episodes. It's like, hey, want to give a shout out to my boy Dean and his business, PFX Media. And I've showed this picture now for several weeks. This is me and Dean when I was visiting Orlando. I think it was, last summer or whatever. But if you may be thinking of or ever thought of doing your own podcast, Dean is your guy. You can contact Dean at PFX Media. Dean, if you want to put your contact information in the chat room again. Looks like we got a comment there too. What's this say here? Oh, this.
Yeah, let's ignore the comment.
Yeah,
somebody's posting an ad.
Guy. Hey, it is what it is. When you're live, you're going to get that kind of stuff. Somebody trying to market us promotions or whatever. Hey, shout out to you and thanks for tuning in. But anyway, yeah. So Dean, there's your studios there in West Orange County. In the greater metropolitan Orlando area, but for anybody else, you don't have to be a resident of the state of Florida or Central Florida to work together with Dean. For Christ's sake, I'm here in Sacramento, California, and you can do your podcasts if you live in that area right there in the studio. They have several different setups, but you can also work together with Dean remotely like I am. And then, in addition to doing the podcasting, and again, Dean, I don't mean to speak for you. You do all kinds of other stuff. You do TV commercials. You do webcasting from conventions and conferences and all the things, TV, film, radio, podcasting. Is that a good way to describe it?
That's pretty good.
Okay. Well, anyhow, I'd like to put a little plug in for our boy, Dean Baker, our co-host and producer and rock star for the Dare Me podcast. So, Dean, as always, thanks for all your help. So,
no problem.
Let's shift gears now, y'all. And we're going to get into the meat and potatoes and the nitty gritty of what tonight's podcast is all about. And part of it is talking about that girl, Madonna, like I said, and being authentic, man. And so me and my sponsor, Shay, went to Madonna together last night, and oh my God, we had so much fun. And there's a picture of the two of us outside of the Golden Center here in Sacramento, which is the big arena downtown. It's, of course, where the Sacramento Kings basketball team plays and all the big concerts come to town go and everything like that. And it was amazing, y'all. We really had a good time. Now, I will say I was on the fence about going because I've been a Madonna fan my whole life, since she became popular back in, the 80s. And being from Detroit, and of course, she's from Detroit, grew up in the, metropolitan Detroit area. Of course, I was a huge fan. And I saw her once before last night. It was a long fucking time ago, way back in 1987 for the Who's That Girl tour. When she was still a young girl. And oh my God, it was amazing. Saw her at a place that's not even there anymore. It's called the Pontiac Silverdome, this huge domed stadium where the Detroit Lions and Pistons used to play. They tore that thing down a long time ago. It was a huge place. I think it sat something like 80,000 people, whatever. But I saw her there, and I still remember that show all the way back from 87 was just amazing. And for some reason, I just never went to see her again. Of course, she'd been on tour many, many times since then, just never ended up there. Well, Madonna is 65 years old now, y'all. She ain't no spring chicken anymore. But I got to tell you, man, she's still gorgeous. I know this something came to mind, man. All this bullshit on the internet talking about authenticity. It's all bullshit, man. Boy, the media and even just those of us on social media, man, we can slant shit real easy because they've made her out to have become a fucking nut. And that's not the case, man. She was talking to the crowd last night, and she was so cool and just, talking about, hey, man, people have fucking hated on me my whole career, bring it on, I'm just going to keep doing me. She said something like, the baddest thing I've ever done there, the coolest thing I've ever done is stuck around, and yeah, she's had some work done on her face like all the rest of the fucking, celebrities and all that. And it looked a little cringe there, but man, I got to tell you, she looked fucking gorgeous last night, man. I think sometimes when people have that kind of work done, it takes a little while for it to take shape and, the final product, if you will. But I'm just as in love with Madonna now as I ever was, if not more, especially after how cool she was last night. Just being so cool to the crowd. Some bands, some singers, some artists, they come out and they don't even fucking talk to the crowd. They just do their show, play song to song to song, and they're fucking gone. And there's no personal connection or whatever. That ain't how it was last night, man. She was just talking to us, telling her story. And that was kind of the concert. The tour is called the Celebration Tour. And it wasn't in like chronological order, but it was kind of like a trip through her catalog from her early days playing. She played all the hits, man, and up until at the end of the show. And oh my God, it was just really good, y'all. I can't say enough about it, and then she's taken some heat. This again, where I feel like things are slanted, man. She's taking heat about starting these shows late. In fact, these two guys in New York are fucking suing her for breach of contract because the concert was supposed to start at 8:30. She didn't come on until 10 o'clock. Well, she didn't fucking come on until 10 o'clock last night. And it's all by design, y'all. Because that's why I said I was a little on the fence. Like, well, that's disrespectful, man. People pay a lot of fucking money to be there, which we're going to talk about in a second. And then to just, show up whenever you feel like it at 10 o'clock or whatever, that is disrespectful. Well, I was able to determine last night, it is all by design, y'all. She has a warm-up act. It's a DJ, actually, playing all this club music and dance music and, light show and getting the vibe set, because that's kind of her, vibe, and a lot of her crowd, is all that club stuff. And it really was by design. You could tell to set the mood, set the vibe, set the stage for her to come on and do the show. It's just like having a fucking warm-up band at a concert. So yeah, maybe coming on at 10 o'clock when, it says 8:30 is a little bit later than what some might expect, but it wasn't a whole lot different than, like I said, having a warm-up band at a concert. Usually, doors open at 8, warm-up comes on at 9, maybe doors open at 7, warm-up comes on at 8, the main band don't come on till 9. So like I said, it didn't bother me at all. I thought it all flowed quite well last night. And then the show was just amazing, man. It went on pretty close to 2.5 hours. And so, yeah, I went, and I'm so grateful I did, because, I even got to the point, I was telling my boy Shebang earlier today, sometimes you got to separate the artist from the music. And I just love all the songs. I've always loved all the Madonna songs, love the songs. Love the music. So I said, you know what, I'm going, and let me take my personal opinions out of it. But, I found out that some of this bullshit I was falling for on the internet is all crock of shit, man. I love the girl. Hey, shout out Madonna. If she ever did see this, love you, man. Like I said, feeling like I do even maybe a little bit more now than I did before the show last night. And feeling, a little guilty for falling for some of that bullshit that people post on the internet, making her out to be a fucking nut, a lunatic, and all this other shit. And it's just people slanting it. And in fact, here's another example of that, man. I saw people post shit of, oh, she's just fucking lip syncing, and they'd show a clip where she fell because some fucking dancer, well, with all respect to the dancer, because it's an extravaganza, by the way, y'all. It's a fucking spectacle, to be sure. What an amazing show, as you're going to see with some of the footage if you're following along with this in a little second here. But there's so much going on all at once. And one of the dancers accidentally was dragging her on a chair, and she fell. And so they showed a part where, when she fell in that show, that you could still hear the vocals of her music, but she didn't even have the fucking mic up to her mouth. And one time she even dropped the mic. So they made it out to be like, oh, yeah, fucking Madonna lip syncing. This ain't even a real show or whatever. Well, you know what? Almost every show you go to anymore, they've got background vocals playing, but it was unmistakable last night that she was singing all these fucking songs. You'll, I think, be able to figure it out with a couple clips we show that, her voice wasn't even completely, in tune. There were parts where it was pitchy. It was authentic. And yeah, there's always background vocals. You ever go to a fucking rap show? They always got fucking background vocals playing, and then the rapper just kind of joins in and is singing to his own vocals, and so she ain't doing nothing different than anybody else is. It's fucking haters posting bullshit online saying, oh, that old fucking hag, oh, she's all washed up, oh, she's lip syncing, oh, look at her, she did to her face, all that fucking shit. And they slant that shit, man. She's fucking beautiful for a 65-year-old woman. And she even acknowledges that at the show. Like I said, when she's talking to everybody, like, hey, man, I'm 65 now, but man, she's still going strong. And you'll see in some of the footage, it ain't the best clarity or whatever quality, but she really put on a hell of a show. And God, man, if that's 65, bring it on, man. I only hope I could be in as good a shape as she is. And still going strong, and still got the pipes too. And anyhow, I'm kind of going on and on about it, but there's me and Shay at the Madonna show. Now, just let you know, here's our next picture. We sat up in the, what people would call the nosebleeds, at the Golden Center. You've of course got the main floor, tier 1, tier 2. So we were in tier 2. And I mentioned earlier, I was going to talk a little bit about, the money and the price for the tickets. This was not a cheap concert to go to. And I was telling a buddy of mine, I have become so spoiled. I've even talked about it on this show, where I've seen some of my favorite artists at these small venues, man. Girls like Benny, like Mallrat, God, that group Leisure I've talked about on here, Mike Campbell from Tom Petty, you know, and the Dirty Knobs and all that. They play these small venues and they do meet and greets, and you can literally lean on the stage with them right in your face, you know. And I was talking about Taylor Swift not long ago. Shout out to all the Swifties, man. Nothing against Tay-Tay. I love her as much as anybody else. All American sweetheart, you know. I love her music. But I thought to myself, I ain't going to none of them fucking concerts, paying $2,000 to see Tay-Tay at a fucking stadium, a lot of them outdoors where you can't even fucking see or hardly hear that well, when I can pay fucking $50 to $100 to see an artist I like just as well, if not more, and be right up close and personal with them. So anyway, the point I'm making is, yeah, I've gotten spoiled, man, going to see some of my favorite artists at these small venues. And that was another reason why I was on the fence about going to this concert, you know, like, God damn, I want to go down there and deal with all these fucking masses of people waiting in line to get in, waiting in line to go to the bathroom, whatever. So where I'm going with this is, if you look at the middle of this picture, all those people down there in front of that like white oval there, they called that the pit. And tickets for that area, I just looked on Ticketmaster, were going for anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 to sit in that area. Where me and Shay sat, $100. Okay, $100 for each ticket, plus taxes and fees and whatever the fuck. But that was the price for where we were. Now, you're going to see in a minute when I show some footage, we got a very close-up view of Madonna from where we were. And if you look at this picture, man, there's all these other areas. She had this fucking stage spread out across the whole goddamn floor of the arena. So all these people that paid thousands of dollars to be that close, they weren't even that close to her for half of the fucking concert, because she was at all these other spots around the arena for half of the show. Not to mention, you'll even see in one of the video clips I'm going to play, she's in this like aerial thing where they kind of fly her around above everybody in the arena. So I don't know, man. If I was down in that pit and I paid $2,000 to $5,000, I would have kind of felt like I got fucking ripped off, because she was not right in front of them for the whole part of the show. So with all that said, let's go ahead and play here. Dean, I'll do it. I'll go ahead and play this. This is a video. It's like 2 minutes long. I figured we'd play the whole damn thing of her doing the classic Vogue. God, one of my favorite songs from her, man. As many fucking times as I had to play that song in different clubs and shit, I still love that song. There are so many songs that I used to have to play in the bars and clubs I worked in most of my life, man, where I'm fucking sick of it. I could care less if I ever hear that fucking song again. Not the case with Vogue. I don't know what it is about that song, but I just still fucking love that song and the whole vibe to it and everything. So yeah, I got about a 2-minute clip of her doing Vogue. So let's go ahead and check that out right now. We'll talk about it more in a second. Here you go. All right, so you get the idea, then after that, they had a little thing where they kind of had a fashion show. Like I said, man, it was a fucking extravaganza. I mean, there's just, you can see in this picture that we've got on the screen right now, there's like all these different stage areas. You've got these 3 spotlights on the left, 3 down the middle, 3 over on the right. You got the catwalk that she's walking around on. It's like all over the place, man. It was almost like a Cirque du Soleil show, if you've ever been to one of them, where you got to pick what you're going to focus your attention on, because there's so many different things going on all at once. And it was that kind of show. So anyhow, I'm going to show you this next video clip, and near the end of it, you're going to see that she literally walks right up that catwalk that you see, that white area near the bottom of the picture on the screen. And it was so bizarre, because right as she walked by there, the arena got noticeably quiet. And you're going to hear me shout out, Madonna, as loud as I could. And if you listen close, you'll hear me say, oh, yeah, she heard me. And I do believe she heard me. She didn't look my way. But anyhow, the point I'm making is, man, even though we sat in the second tier, depending on where she was at different times of the show, we were like right up close and personal for $100. And meanwhile, all these people down in the pit, man, who probably had to stand the whole fucking time too, paid $2,000 to $5,000. And one thing I've learned too, man, going to shows in these big arenas like this, I do like being close up in the smaller venues. Like I said, elbows on the stage right there. But in these bigger arenas, when you're down that close, man, you kind of miss the effects of the whole light show and everything. And being up in the second tier and kind of from a step back, man, you really take in more of the effects of the whole show. And so almost sounds like I'm trying to justify sitting in the second tier or the nosebleeds, if you will. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. And watching all them fucking people standing up on their feet for the whole show, I was glad to be in a comfy seat enjoying the show. So anyway, let's watch this next one. She's singing the classic Crazy for You, which, oh my God, I always love that song. So pardon, you're going to hear me singing along a little bit. It's a classic from the 80s, a love song. And then she'll make her way from about the middle of the stage to that catwalk, which was right below where Shay and I were sitting. So let's check it out. This video clip's about 1.5 minutes long. Check it out.
You feel it in my kiss. I'm crazy for you. Crazy for you. Crazy for you.
Look at that, man.
Crazy for you.
Yeah, so there you go, man. I got to shout out Madonna, and she was literally like right below us at that particular part of the show, y'all. And and as I mentioned, you could tell if you were listening to her vocals there, she got a little pitchy in a couple spots. So, she's not lip syncing that whole fucking show. You know, there's times when, yeah, there's backup vocals recorded playing that she sings over, just like any other fucking artist out there anymore. You know, it's how it is. But she didn't lip sync that show. She sang, you know, to all of those songs, and she clearly was, you know, singing that one live. You know, there were a couple spots where it was a little pitchy, but hey, man, that made it all the more live and natural. It was a fucking great show. Can't say enough about it, y'all. Man, she's off to, I think she's doing 2 nights in San Francisco now, and then I think 4 in a row down in LA. I tell you, man, after going last night, I'm thinking, damn, I might want to go down to LA and catch one of them shows. I don't know if I'll do it. It's just I've got so much other stuff going on. But if we have any viewers or listeners in those areas, you're on the fence, kind of like I was thinking about going to the show, you won't be disappointed. You know, it ain't a cheap show, you know what I mean? But like I said, maybe get one of the seats up in the, you know, upper tier or whatever. Is a little less expensive. And I think you might enjoy it even better than if you were down there in the pit or on the main floor, you know? So anyhow, with all that said, y'all, there's my discussion and review of the Madonna concert, that we described and said we would talk about in the description for tonight's show. And going back to that video that we played right out of the open on today's show, you know, I liked playing that interview that was done with her, which obviously it was a little bit earlier in her career, but she had been out for a long time by then, because as the interviewer said, you know, man, some of the stuff you've done is like for shock value. And she said, yeah, you know, or as the interviewer said, you know, she said, oh, it's all like a joke, you know, it's to get people's attention. But then she also said, but it's also very authentic, is you know, basically what she said, like, you know, I do what I do with an intention. It's by design, at the very least, as she said, to try to help people to get over their hangups, is the phrase she used. And I thought, wow, man, that'd be a good video for me to maybe play out of the open for this episode of the Dare Me podcast we're calling Authenticity, being authentic. And so, as I teased as well in a little quick video I did leading up to tonight's show, I put a reel out there saying, hey, warning, warning, danger, danger, you know, trying to get people's attention. Tonight's content of this podcast may not be for everybody. What I said in that video I put out there is that if you're easily offended by strong language, by cussing and swearing, you may not want to tune in to tonight's show, because there's going to be lots of cussing and swearing coming up right now. Not even from yours truly. Yeah, I do my share of swearing on here. You know, we put our content warning on at the beginning, talking about being authentic, you know, as I've talked about on this podcast before. I'm not on here dropping F-bombs on purpose or whatever for shock value to get people's time. Certainly I've done things and said things for shock value, but not cursing and swearing. I do that because I'm being authentic. The authentic Glenn. That's how I talk in my real life. You know, my language is laced with all kinds of colorful language. And then it's also by design, because if we are in fact getting to the people that this show really was designed to try to get to, people going through opiate withdrawals or any kind of drug withdrawal, trying to get clean, trying to kick, looking for content to get their attention that's hopefully inspirational, having to do with, you know, addiction, recovery, and all the topics we talk about. People going through that, they ain't sparing no words when it comes to language. And so the point I'm making is sometimes you got to meet people at their own level to hopefully keep their attention and hopefully inspire them in some way, you know, to start, you know, doing what they need to do to get their life back on track. And so, yeah, man, I certainly use colorful language on here, but some videos we're about to show right now are laced with all kinds of cursing and swearing. And I'm not showing these for the shock value of that, y'all. The reason that I decided to show these and call this episode Authenticity is because you're going to see some clips, some of whom are very well-known people. We got Bill O'Reilly, the news guy. We got Casey Kasem, may he rest in peace. But before he died, he was a huge star, radio star, mainly for, what was it called? Countdown America, or, America's Top 40. That's what it was. And, he goes on a rant. Bill O'Reilly goes on a rant. We got this news reporter who's playing this role of Mr. News Reporter, and a fucking bug flies in his mouth and he loses it. And then he shows his hood rat side, kind of like yours truly does, from time to time. But the point of these videos you're about to watch is to demonstrate, if that's the right word. Sorry, y'all, that's my dog. She heard somebody outside. Jazzy. Like we often say on here, y'all, anything can happen live. Jazzy. Sorry, y'all. Cut it out. Well, that has happened in 50 episodes. Come on, cut it out. In 50 episodes, that dog is always sitting right next to me. She's had a bark or two from time to time, but she's never gone on that much. Oh, he's got treats right here. Here, Jazzy, there's some treats. Oh, the more reason, y'all, it's going to be good that we go to doing these shows recorded. So anyway, yeah, that totally threw off my train of thought. Where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So, okay. So we're going to show these videos, and I've had them sitting in the can, like I said earlier on the show, for a while now. And I don't know, for some reason I started to compile these, and obviously I had some going on in my noggin thinking, well, we're going to use these for something at some point or whatever. And even did play the Casey Kasem one way back early on with this show. And I guess where I was going with that is because I do feel vulnerable sometimes doing this show. And when I first started doing it, it really was that whole dare me to come out, and talk openly about my addiction. And I know for a fact that it fucking blew the mind to some people that knew me for years in my professional life and my career, that had no fucking idea I was an addict, or that I was struggling with addiction, or that I lived clean and sober all them years, having struggled with addiction prior to my professional life and all. And, I never tried to hide it. That I was an addict, that I was in recovery, that I went to 12-step meetings, whatever the fuck. But I didn't broadcast it because of the stigma about it. I went to meetings openly. There were people, certainly in my professional life, that knew I was in recovery, and if anybody ever asked me about it, I would never lie. I'd be more than happy to talk openly about it. I'm sure there were some from my professional life that might have even suspected it because of some of the organizations I was involved with and supported, like the Orange County Office for a Drug-Free Community in Central Florida. I was very active with them for a couple of years, sat on the board for Mothers Against Drunk Driving for a few years. You get the idea. I was very involved with things and organizations having to do with this topic in my professional life. But the point I'm making is, there were times, even looking back now, where I felt like a phony. And I was, quite frankly, I was a fucking phony. I was playing this role, almost like leading this double life, man. Oh my God. In fact, I watched 2020 Friday night. And it was kind of a coincidence. It was pretty bizarre. There was a story about this guy who lived in Orlando in the Delaney Park area, and he married this lady. And come to find out, without getting into the whole story, he truly was leading a double life. He was putting on this role, this persona, being this married guy and all this other stuff. And he ended up murdering his wife and got convicted and went to prison. And again, as they dug deep into, the investigation, come to find out this guy was leading a completely double life. And certainly my double life wasn't to that extreme. What I will say is I look back sometimes on how I conducted myself and my behavior in my working life. Man, it was so fucking far from my authentic self, like what you're seeing and hearing right now, the authentic Glenn. And how this topic, this sickness of addiction, has been such a huge part of my life from when I was a kid. And I will tell you, without going into too much detail, a family sickness, not just yours truly. I grew up around that shit, y'all. That's what I experienced in my own family. And I don't mean even just my immediate family. I'm talking about uncles, aunts, and every other fucking thing. Wiped out a whole fucking family, man. And, and I always thought, man, I'll never let that happen to me. And then I even got caught up and it became even worse. So it's been a part of my life. It is literally who I am, part of who I am. And so when I say, that I felt like a phony a lot in my working life, it's true, because I would go in and I just would play this role. And especially working in the media, in radio and television, man, like I said earlier on this podcast, that light goes on, that mic's hot. It's almost like your whole personality changes. And so I think where I'm going with this whole thing is that one thing about this podcast, although it's become, a lot of work and everything else I talked about on the front end, the one thing I've loved about it, y'all, as we start to bring it to a close here in the next couple of weeks, is it did give me the opportunity to be my authentic self in a way and on a platform where I used to literally be a phony in my mind, where I would play that role of that guy, that radio guy, that TV guy, or whatever. And then I talked about on this show too before how sometimes, man, and I'm certainly guilty of it too, we like to put people on a fucking pedestal, don't we? We want to have these fucking role models, these leaders, these idols, when at the end of the day, man, we're all just fucking people. Everybody got to get up and fucking take shit, putting their underwear and socks on at the beginning of every day, just like anybody else does. And man, we like to put people on pedestals. And, I tend to do it. I talked about it last week, how we do that a lot with sports figures, with musicians and artists and things, when they're just people, man. That's one of the things I loved about Madonna last night, talking to the crowd, where she was just being like a normal girl, just like, God, man, I'm looking back at my career and I think, how the fuck did something like this happen to a girl like me? I can't believe it. She was being very humble about it, and it was kind of cool. So anyhow, I'm going on and on about it, and so I thought we'd show these videos to demonstrate that people are not always who we think they are, and that people do put on these masks and play these roles. The old Shakespeare saying, I am an actor and all the world is my stage. And with these videos, oh my God, do people show the other side of themselves big time. And, there's a damn good chance that you may have seen or heard some of these on the internet, because they've gone viral on, all the different platforms, YouTube, the internet, TikTok, whatever the fuck. And so the first one that we're going to play here, this is a shorty, and I just love this one. With all respect to all my coworkers, my whole working life, and any so-called bosses, because nobody was ever the fucking boss of me. They might have had that title and thought they could fucking boss me. I chose to do the things I did so I could get paid. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Nobody was ever my fucking boss. I allowed you to be in the role you were in at the company I worked for. That's the way I look at it. And of course, I was a boss for a lot of people too, in that role, that title. And that's another, example of how we take on this role, where never felt like I was being my authentic self. It's like, yeah, okay, now I gotta fucking play the role of boss. Let me put that fucking hat on. You know what I mean? And oh my God, managing people, not my favorite thing to do. I managed lots of people. Oh my God, man, I was managing this one program at this company I worked for. I had over 50 fucking employees. I said it many times. Give me a project to manage. I'll manage the shit out of a project. I'll make sure every fucking T is crossed, I is dotted, and every other goddamn thing. Make sure that thing runs smooth and the way it's supposed to. But managing people, good luck, because people just don't act right, man. People will do whatever, yours truly included, do whatever the fuck they want, man. And cop attitude, accuse you of this, and harassment, and being mean, and hostile work environment, and everything, just because you call them on their shit and say, what the fuck? Do your fucking job and shut the fuck up. Quit causing problems and all that other shit. So yeah, getting off topic a little bit now, but man, I will be honest with y'all. I ain't gonna lie on this one. This video here, and I know a lot of other people can relate. This is almost me to a T. Every single day that I went in to the various jobs I had over my working life, and I'll just say it, man, especially the last couple of years of my working life. Oh God, I hated it. I fucking hated it anymore. And that was all me. It was just me. I mean, there was shit going on all around me that probably wasn't. Yeah, I better leave it at that, because I don't want to start talking negative about people and situations. But this video right here, oh God, I love this. Check it out.
Oh God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
And like I said, man, it was quick and short and to the point. But oh my God, I love that video clip so much. And I know there are lots of people in the working world that feel exactly the same. In fact, I love that video so much, we are going to play it again. Check this out.
Oh God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
Sorry, y'all. Couldn't resist playing it again. I'm the only one that can relate to that guy. Love him, man. Love that video. And, maybe it takes the edge off a little bit of having to go into a shit job that you fucking hate. But let's face it, man. Everybody's got to get paid. You got to make money. One thing I will say that I learned now that I've been retired for, God, it'll be 4 years in July, man, that I've been retired from like full-time career work. You know what I mean? I got my little hustles like doing this podcast like anybody, but officially retired from the working world, from corporate America. It'll be 4 years, 4th of July weekend. And if I learned anything is, oh my God, do yourself a favor. If you're still in the working life, don't stay at a job or a company that you have fucking grown miserable of, that you've outgrown because of fucking the comfort of that regular paycheck, that stability. Holy fuck. We will really swallow a lot of fucking pride to continue to get that paycheck and refuse to acknowledge sometimes that it's time to move on, man. I outgrew this motherfucking place or this people or whatever the fuck, and things change, man. Different people come, things evolve. It's like, I had my ride, I did what I did. Time to move on, man. Oh my God, I could have saved myself a lot of fucking grief and anger and frustration and resentment and every other goddamn thing had I done that myself. But it's all good. I'm kind of proud of myself, man. Like I've said, I worked for a few companies for a long time, and I used to have people congratulate me on my longevity and say what a good job I did. And I often say, I still feel this way, like I just said, I did a very good job, managed the shit out of projects, did an okay job managing people, not the best, but I did my best. And I did do a good job, but the key to my longevity was not because I did a good job. job, which I did do, it was because I was somehow able to find it inside of me not to tell everybody to go fuck themselves, which I wanted to do, especially them last couple of years. It seemed like on a daily fucking basis. And so, man, oh man, talk about being authentic and living the life. Like I said, I started feeling like a phony, like, oh my God.
Oh, God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
Oh my God. I'm so grateful I don't fucking have to do that shit no more, man. I will tell you, if you are a working person and there is any possible way you can swing it to retire early like I did, do yourself a favor and fucking do it, man. I retired at 58. And you know what? It's working out. Is working out, man. And I'll just say too, I didn't talk about it. I just turned 62 a couple of weeks ago. And, I've been telling some friends, man, you get older, a little bit older like I am now, you kind of wish the years would slow down a little bit because, time's going by quick. Well, boy, oh boy, this last year, I was really looking forward to it flying by quick because guess what? Can you say Social Security? Ka-ching, ka-ching. Fucking A, baby. And you know what? And that is my money. That ain't no fucking gimme program. That ain't no handout. That's my motherfucking money. I worked my whole goddamn life for that money, man. Every time I'd look at my paycheck and see how much fucking money they took out for that FICA and shit, I would sometimes I'd want to fucking cry. And oh my God, I'm so glad that I'm still alive just to start getting some of my motherfucking money back. And if you're one of them people that thinks, oh, well, I ain't collecting mine till I turn 65 or I turn 67. Well, there's a formula out there that you may want to take a look at, because that's one of them things where I feel like the fucking Fed is pulling a fast one on people, man, because, by the time you fucking add up all that money you would have got between 62 and 65 or 62 and 67, you have to live to be fucking 80 years old before it pays off to wait longer. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but there's a formula out there. Believe me, you are much better off, in my opinion, my humble little opinion, to take that fucking Social Security on the early buyout if you want to retire early. If you're one of them fucking people loves working, you want to continue working full time till you're fucking 80, hey, do you, boo. But I will tell you, man, retiring was the best thing other than getting clean that I ever did for myself, for my peace. For my peace of mind, y'all. So I didn't feel like a phony and didn't have to continue feeling like this.
Oh, God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
Yeah, man, just try to get out as soon as you can so you can begin being your authentic self. And like the man said, not have to be.
Oh, God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. One more time, just had to play it. So let's move along to our next video. Talking about being authentic. And like the man was just saying, being fake for 8 motherfucking hours. Okay, I talked about this guy, and this video has been out there for a long time, gone viral and shit, about how we do put people on a pedestal and we think, oh man, what a professional. Oh my God, he does such a good job. What a good person he is. And I'm not saying this guy ain't a good person. I'm sure he probably is a good person. You know what I mean? What I will say is, God, man, sometimes in society, I just feel like we're so fucking naive, man, to how people really are, and how, especially in the news media, man, oh my God, people fucking play these roles. And I'm just saying, man, having worked in the media, don't fall for that bullshit, because you're going to see two sides of this guy right now. And you tell me which one is the real one, the authentic one, and which one, like the man just said, is the phony. Check it out.
What really happened on that Thursday here at Augusta High School that led to Chris Wood's death? The fuck is that? Yeah.
I'm dying in this fucking country ass fucked up town. Shit flying in my mouth. The fuck, I can't see pollen. Let's get the fuck out this country, motherfucker. I can't even see me.
I'm sorry, y'all. I couldn't resist. If you've never seen that one before, man, you must be living under a rock, because that thing's been out there on the internet for a long time now and went viral. But again, I've had it waiting in the wings and sitting in our standby file for a while now, and I knew I wanted to do something with it. And then, like I said, man, I just got this idea. Okay, what the fuck am I going to do on this podcast this week? And I came up with this topic of authenticity. And I thought this was a good example to show how, man, people ain't always what they appear to be. Yours truly included, when I was living that fucking working life. And like the man said earlier,
Oh, God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
I'm sorry, y'all. I just love that fucking video. So, okay, let me give you another example. How everybody has two sides to them, that phony side, as well as their actual authentic self. This is an old fellow Detroiter, man. One of them boys from my hometown, Motown, Detroit City. Yeah, he was a Detroit man. He's gone now. He's dead. May he rest in peace. But man, for a lot of people, at the end of his life, there was some weird drama with his family and all kinds of shit. I ain't going to go down that rabbit hole, but he was an idol for a lot of people that wanted to work in the radio business. And of course, a lot of people that just loved listening to his radio program that he did for years. That was called American Top 40. And then a little bit of trivia. A lot of people don't know this. He was the voice of Shaggy on the classic cartoon Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Yeah, his name was Casey Kasem. And there's this rant that he goes on that anybody in the radio business has probably fucking heard this before. If not, I'd be very surprised. And of course, a lot of other people, because it's been viral for years, where he just blows his fucking top. He is literally in the process of recording his show. And you can tell, based on what he says, there's producers standing by and they're doing things, and he fucking blows a fuse, man. And so, hey, I gave y'all a content warning leading up to today's show. There's lots of cussing and swearing. The Bill O'Reilly one, I think, is the worst. But Casey goes on a little rant here, y'all. This is about 1:20. Check this out.
Now, we're up to our long-distance dedication. And this one is about kids and pets and a situation that we can all understand, whether we have kids or pets or neither. It's from a man in Cincinnati, Ohio. And here's what he writes. Dear Casey, this may seem to be a strange dedication request, but I'm quite sincere, and it'll mean a lot if you play it. Recently, there was a death in our family. He was a little dog named Snuggles, but he was most certainly a part of... Let's go start again. From coming out of the record. Play the record, okay? Please. See, when you come out of those up-tempo goddamn numbers, man, it's impossible to make those transitions. And then you got to go into somebody dying. They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for, but goddamn it, if we can't come out of a slow record, I don't understand it. Is Don on the phone? Okay, I want a goddamn concerted effort to come out of a record that isn't a fucking up-tempo record every time I do a goddamn death dedication. Now, make it, and I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week. This is last goddamn time. I want somebody to use his fucking brain to not come out of a goddamn record that is, that's up-tempo, and I got to talk about a fucking dog dying.
I'm sorry, y'all. Oh my God. I know he goes off there, but to me, that is just fucking hilarious. And Dean, I know you're on standby there, but I was thinking to myself, man, with all the technical difficulties we had leaning into today's program, and we ended up having to start 45 minutes late. I think it's a testament to how well you and I work together that neither one of us fucking went on a rant like that. Like, God, what the fuck? I gotta talk about a fucking dog dying, you know? But anyway, man, that Casey Kasem bit right there. Holy cow, man. That to me is hilarious. How he just loses his temper. But again, the whole point I guess I'm making, because I was thinking to myself as the one video was playing, like, oh my God, somebody might be watching this thinking, Glenn, you're losing your audience. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? All showing these videos when this show's supposed to be about helping people through addiction and recovery and all that other stuff. And bringing it full circle, y'all, the point I guess I'm trying to make with all this madness and this humor and whatnot I'm showing right now is that if you're one of them people stuck in the grips of addiction and you can't be your authentic self, you're so fucking worried about the stigma of addiction. Oh God, what are people going to think? I got to continue to play this role of that guy, Mr. Businessman, Mr. Corporate America, Mr. Who or Mrs. Whoever the fuck, when you're dying inside because you know you're hooked on dope, but you got to keep playing that role. You got to hold your head high, go into fucking work every day, be that rock, you know, that, oh, that's my rock, people will say. But meanwhile, the person they call their rock is fucking dying inside because they aren't being their authentic self. We play these roles. And if you're a person caught up in addiction and so you're so fucking worried about your ego and your reputation and, oh my God, what are people going to think? And even your well-being, your livelihood, your earning potential. Guess what I was taught? Glenn, if you don't put yourself first, start being your authentic self, acknowledge you're an addict and your addiction, you're going to lose all that shit any fucking way. So what are you so fucking worried about this goddamn job that you can't even stand going to anymore, and all this fucking money or whatever that you're making, or, you know, what these people are going to think of you if you keep fucking using the dope and end up dying, especially now with all the fentanyl out there, and you get a hold of some bullshit pills that are laced with that shit, and you take, because the catchphrase and buzz phrase right now is one pill can kill, and that's fucking true. And you get sick, you get dope sick, oh God, you can't get none, and so you get one off the street or some off the street or one from somebody else, and that shit's got fentanyl in it, and you're fucking dead. Because you're trying to maintain this image of being that guy or that girl and playing this fucking role like the videos we just talked about, instead of being your authentic self and acknowledging that you're a fucking dope fiend and you need help. You've become physically addicted, mentally addicted. You've developed a substance abuse disorder. You know, you follow what I'm saying? And for me, y'all, that's, I think, the point of this whole thing of me with this topic of authenticity is I felt like a phony. I was a phony. I was living this double life of playing that role of this guy who's the rock and's got his shit together, this radio, TV, media director at a multi-million-dollar company of corporate America guy, and I was fucking dying inside and hopelessly addicted for 9 fucking years to opioid pain medication and all of that. And so, yeah, man, I'm so grateful that I can be my authentic self now, come out about my addiction and talk openly about it that I've struggled with my whole life. As the name of the show, dare me to come out. And if me coming out and being authentic and open and honest about my struggles with addiction and talk about the things that helped me and worked for me can help, like we say, even one person, then I got no goddamn right to keep it to myself and play this fucking phony ass role and do this fucking bull.
Oh God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
Yeah, buddy, so yeah, man, I feel like I was getting a little fired up there for a minute, and I was, because that's what we, hello, do sometimes in our lives, and not just being caught up in addiction, but for those of us caught up in active addiction, yeah, man, believe me, you ain't fooling me. We can spot each other a mile away. Yeah, we live a double life, and we run around and we think we're tricking everybody, as the saying that I was taught goes, but the only one we're tricking is our motherfucking self. It's time to quit being phony if you're caught up in that shit, and be your authentic self. Fuck the stigma, as I just said, and I'm just going to say it one more time. You're so worried about your reputation, so worried about your livelihood. Oh, my job. Oh, my money. Oh, what are people going to think? Oh, I can handle it. All that other shit. And meanwhile, you're dying inside and killing yourself slowly but surely, physically, mentally, spiritually. Because you got no fucking peace, because you're hooked on dope. I promise you, if that's you, if you're a person that came across this podcast, you're struggling, you feel like a fucking phony, you're going through this.
Oh, God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
You don't have to keep going there, whether it's that job or back to the dope man or to the dope itself or whatever. You don't have to. I am living proof of that, and so are thousands and thousands of others around the country, around the world, that have got off of that shit, gone through the hell that you gotta go through to get clean. It ain't like you just decide to get clean one day and somebody sprinkles pixie dust all over you, like I often say on this show, and everything's all fine and good. No, it ain't that fucking easy. You gotta go through hell. There's work to be done. But like that saying goes, that I always like to talk about on this show, if you're going through hell, keep fucking going. You will come out the other side, and that's where the freedom is, for you to be your authentic self, so you don't have to live and feel like this anymore.
Oh, God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
Yeah, man. And that's an example of a guy going to a job, but it's the same for fucking going back to the dope, man, addiction, using, any other fucking thing. So, yeah, if you were a person, when you're following along, watching this podcast, and start thinking, what the fuck is he talking about? What is it? Why is he showing these videos of Casey Kasem and this other guy and, all that other stuff? When this podcast is supposed to be inspiring about getting through drugs and addiction, I guess that's where my mind. I had somebody tell me, God damn, Glenn, it must be a trip living in your head. You got so much going on up there. Sometimes I have things going on. Like I've said, this show takes on a life of its own, and I'm not even always sure where we're going with it. Sometimes after the fact, I got to step back, take a deep breath, and go, holy fuck. Like I said, I'll look at the show sometime after the fact and go, it's like takes on a life of its own, y'all. Sometimes I'm on here running my fucking mouth. I heard a guy on that Recovery in the Middle Ages podcast. I talked about that on here once before. That's a good show, by the way, if you want to go check it out. It's a podcast about recovery. It's called Recovery in the Middle Ages. These two guys. And one of them said, somebody came up to him after the show one week and was talking to him about something he said on there. And he was like, dude, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's like, when we're doing that show, I'm almost like in a blackout, is what he said. He goes, I don't remember everything we talked about. I got to go back and look or think about it. And that's how I feel sometimes with this show. Nothing on this show is scripted. Like I said, you getting the authentic Glenn sometimes, but I have sometimes no idea what we're even doing or where we're going with it, but it always seems to work itself out and flush itself out. And that's kind of how I feel a little bit about tonight with this whole topic of authenticity, and everything I just described is, I guess, where my mind was going with it all, was showing you all these videos like this.
Oh, God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
Oh, thank God I don't have to live like that anymore, man, because I will tell y'all, man, one thing I do not miss when it comes to addiction and the dope is chasing that shit. And oh my God, we're going to talk about that a little bit at the end of the show. So anyway, y'all, I got another video that we're going to show about somebody having two sides to them. And this is a video. He gets pretty raunchy in this one, I will say. And it's a little bit of an older video of a news guy, Bill O'Reilly. Some might debate whether he's an actual news guy, but that's where he's made his living in any case. And, hosted talk shows, stuff like that. And he was recording a promo for this show. And something went horribly wrong with the teleprompter and he lost his fucking temper. And so it's a good example of how people can sometimes play these roles. Like I've said, especially in the radio and TV business, the light goes on, the mic's hot, you like take on this role, you become this actor. And then he loses his temper and shows some of his authentic self. So, yeah, this one's been out there for a while. If you've never seen it before, you'll get the idea. It's about 1.5 minutes long. Let's give it a look and a listen, and then we'll talk about it.
That's tomorrow. And that is it for us today. Okay, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's not right on the teleprompter. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that.
No, there it is. We are going to do Sting, yeah.
Okay, but... Now, I can't read it. There's no words on it.
Okay. Ready? Sure.
There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out.
Sting is going to do. It's a video. Sting video. Okay.
What is
for credits?
I don't know what that means. To play us out. What does that mean? To end the show?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Go.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it.
Okay. In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a... I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live. Right. Fucking thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
Oh, my God. Dean, have you ever seen that one before? I want to bring you into the show here, Dean. Have you seen that? Because, you're a producer. I was feeling for the guy there behind the scenes. You could hear the producer doing the countdown, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I know you worked in the television industry back in Massachusetts earlier on in your career. Did you ever experience anything like what we just saw there?
Yeah, people lose their tempers quite often. Most are smart enough to realize somebody's always recording something. So you just kind of have to, things happen. Hopefully they don't go live over the air, but things do happen.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Dean, as I was watching that, I'll just say it again, man. I think it's a good testament to what I said earlier about how much I appreciate the working relationship you and I have together. I mean, we're into episode 50, and like even tonight with my little dog barking, it's like we say, anything can happen live tonight. It was just it's weird that it happened tonight where we're talking about this kind of stuff, that we had these technical difficulties and we didn't start till 45 minutes after our usual time. But, you and I, we will talk frankly to each other from time to time. And I appreciate it when you will give me honest, constructive feedback. You're not like a yes man. And I love that about you, man, that you're like, well, Glenn, what the fuck, or whatever, and I'll sometimes be a little frank with you, but we have this, I think, mutual respect for each other because we both worked in this type of business for so many years. But the point I'm making is, after all the different projects and everything we've worked on together for going 25, 30 years, we've worked together on different things. Neither one of us have ever lost our temper like either of them guys that I can remember. You know what I mean? So anyway, I just thought I'd point that out, man. And I do appreciate your working relationship, and you're a rock star behind the scenes. And And by the way, not just behind the scenes, man, but in front of the camera and on the mic too. You know, you've got your own show that you do with that boy George. Oh God, the Money Show. What's it called again?
Modern Day Thrive.
Yeah, Modern Day Thrive. And you know, even before we started this podcasting, I would watch that show from time to time and tune in. And I remember one time I was texting messages to the show like, Dane, I've never seen you in front of the camera like this before, man. You have a talent for that. You absolutely do, man. And so anyway, mean to go on and on about it, but I just thought it was a good opportunity for me again to say how much I appreciate the work and relationship we have, because neither one of us have blown our top that way before. But with all that said, y'all, you know, and Dean, I appreciate your input on that. You know, I think I kind of made my point about how does this all tie into the topic of authenticity. Yeah, I'm using these examples from these radio and TV guys blowing their top, or that guy going into work talking about, you know, being a phony and all that, but it's the same thing with addiction, man. People play these roles because they're so worried about the stigma. What are people going to think? What if I lose my job? What if this? What if that? But if you lose your life, like I was taught, then you're going to lose all that shit anyways, man. We're so worried about sometimes change, you know. And boy, I learned, man, that, you know, those who are resistant to change in life are destined to be miserable, you know. And I ain't trying to sound like no life philosopher or whatever, but I will say I was taught, man, if life stayed the same all the time, sure would become pretty fucking boring after a while, wouldn't it? I mean, there's something to be said for structure and stability and all that stuff, man. But boy, I look back over the course of my lifetime, man, and I'm grateful for all the different things I've experienced that I never would have if it wasn't for change. And so on that note, let's go ahead and show this last video clip because, yeah, man, and you may have seen this one. This is from another famous actor. May he rest in peace, that boy Bernie Mac. And before he died, he talked a little bit about, you know, going out and making your own lane. And sometimes that does involve having to make that brave decision of making a change. And this is a real short clip, and he uses some colorful language, but I love this little clip of him. Check it out, y'all.
You can talk about me all the fuck you want. I don't give a fuck. I got mine, goddammit. You better hustle and get yours.
And in case you missed that,
you can talk about me all the fuck you want. I don't give a fuck. I got mine, goddammit. You better hustle and get yours.
Say what?
You can talk about me all the fuck you want. I don't give a fuck. I got mine, goddammit. You better hustle and get yours.
All right, y'all. Obviously, I was having a little fun with that. Played it 3 times, and you know, I just thought that was a good way to wrap up those little video clips, man. We're going to transition into the news, but I hope you got the point I was trying to make there, man, about how important it is for us to be our authentic self. And looking back over the course of my working life and tying my addiction and recovery into the whole thing, man, I wish I would have been a little bit more of my authentic self, at the very least for my own peace. I get it. Even with the whole recover out loud and anonymity thing, you know, I know people in the recovery community who still feel very strongly that they've got to play their addiction, their recovery close to the vest because of the stigma in our community, in our society, and that their employer, at least in their mind and the way they think, just wouldn't understand, and that they may be judged in a negative way. Well, you know what? I'll respect that. I'll also say they might be surprised, because just like with this podcast, y'all, I came out with it, dare me to come out. And I've said on here many times, there are people who I haven't heard from which is fine, that I thought I would have. People I thought I was pretty close with over the course of my working life who would have contacted me in some fashion and said, "Oh my God, Glenn, I had no idea, bro. I'm glad you're doing well, man. Good for you." And fucking crickets, nada. I know it's because they don't want their fucking name mentioned in the same sentence with mine after I've come out the way I have. Meanwhile, I've heard from people who I knew as associates or colleagues throughout the course of my working life, just maybe casually, who have bombarded me, quite frankly, with DMs and messages, people thanking me for what they're doing or what we're doing, or asking for information, or just reaching out with props like, "Oh my God, Glenn, I'm so happy you're still around and that you're doing good and that you didn't take you out, man. Good for you." Like I said, that boy Tyler telling us, "Dean, we're doing God's work with this program," and stuff like that. And so the point I'm making is, if you're a person who's so worried about being your authentic self because of your livelihood, your career, whatever the fucking case may be, you might just be surprised how different it might be if you did come out and be your authentic self and talk openly about it. I get it. I ain't saying this for everybody. Some people just choose to live differently, play it close to the best. I ain't saying you got to do it my way or anybody else's fucking way. All I'm saying is, maybe it might not be as bad as you might think. Matter of fact, it may be even better, just like it's been with this podcast, because I will tell you, as I've said on here many times, sometimes I second guess myself, like, "Oh God, what have I done? What must this person think of me, or that group of people, or those fucking people," and all that. But at the end of the day, man, here we are 50 episodes in. Oh, I have no regrets. None at all with coming out on this podcast, man. Because we do know we've helped people. We've shared many messages on previous episodes about information, that we've gotten of helping people who've reached out to us live on this show, and, things to that nature. So, it looks like that boy G is in our chat room. Shout out G. He wrote, "These videos are cracking me up." Those are funny ass videos, ain't they? But I appreciate you saying that, G, because they are funny. There's also a deep meaning behind them. There really is, man. That whole, like I said, almost like that dual personality thing. Like, I felt like I was living, two different lives with my addiction and my working life and that whole thing. And I'm just, that's where I was going with it. It was like, no regrets with this podcast, y'all. I truly feel like I'm being my authentic self in my life. And for that, I wouldn't trade anything, man, So anyway, if you're a person who may be caught up in struggles with addiction, it may just save your life by coming out, recovering out loud, asking for help, being willing to accept help, and not be so worried about your reputation or, "Oh God, what are people going to think?" Quit living that double life, because it will kill you. You get a hold of some bullshit dope, man, and like I said, what I was taught is, "Glenn, what are you so worried about all that other stuff? Because if you take some shit and die, you're going to lose all that anyways." And then, as we've talked about on this podcast many times, without going, too far down that road, is once you do come out and make that change and start working on being your authentic self, recovering out loud, whatever the fuck you want to call it, things are going to change. Oh man, it's going to change. As my first sponsor, Chester, I'll never forget him. May he rest in peace. The man still speaks to me, from the grave. One of the things he taught me when I was a younger man and I was going through hell getting clean, and him saying to me, "Man, God, I'm trying not to get filled up because I miss the man," and him teaching me, he said, "Glenn, I ain't going to tell you things are going to get better, and I ain't going to tell you things are going to get worse." He said, "But I will promise you things will get different." And you know what? That has held true to me to this day. And anybody who knows. And so with all that said, y'all, yeah, when you get clean, things are going to change. They're going to get different. Maybe they might even. And then G chimed in, I've never lost my temper at work. That's an inside joke, y'all. I won't get specific, but I happen to know a couple of situations with G. He don't, but you know what though, G, and if you're listening or watching our podcast, you can look right in the chat and see it there. It's one of the things I love about you is being your authentic self. Sometimes, yeah, man, we got to bite our lip, bite our tongue. Like I said earlier, people would always congratulate me on what a great job I did. And I did do a good fucking job. But the key to my longevity at my jobs and my careers was learning to bite my lip and not tell everybody to go fuck themselves and bully me around, because every time I'd get that paycheck, I would laugh all the way to the bank. And you know what? People that would piss me off like that, most of the time, not all of the time, most of the time, they never fucking lasted, because they were fucking assholes. You know what I mean? Sometimes people get into positions of power and they're being so fucking phony with the powers that be that they just fucking get sold up the river on it. Meanwhile, they're being their authentic asshole self running the joint. I'm kind of getting off topic, but yeah, man. Oh man, sometimes we do got to bite our lip if we want to continue to get paid, man. So I'm glad you're keeping that temper in check now. But yeah, like you've never lost your temper at work. But who has it, man? Even if you didn't lose your temper with the actual people at your job, but lost it like this.
Oh, God, let me go in here and act like I give a fuck and be fake for 8 motherfucking hours. God damn, boy. Shit, why I gotta keep coming here?
Hey, if that's the way you got to lose your temper in private, in your car, more power to you, because I did it. Oh my God. I can't tell you how many fucking times I did it like that guy just did on my way in, or cussing motherfuckers out on the way home. God damn, no good, motherfucker. So sometimes we do need to vent our frustrations or our anger, but if you want to keep getting that paycheck, sometimes you got to do it in other ways. So anyhow, thanks for chiming in, G. Glad you're watching and hopefully enjoying the show. I think I made my point, even revealed a little bit of it to myself, what the purpose of this whole show was in me putting it together and understanding how my crazy mind works. Sometimes when I put this show together, like, okay, where am I going with this? What am I doing with this? And that was the whole point of all those videos and this discussion we've had for the last hour about being authentic to yourself, whether it's with a job that maybe it's time to move on from so you have more peace in your life, or more specifically in regards to the topic of what the show is all about, addiction. Being your authentic self and being able to quit being a phony or living that double life and owning up and acknowledging that you got a fucking problem, man. And if you don't do something about it and be your authentic self and acknowledge you're an addict or you have a substance abuse disorder or addiction, whatever the fuck you want to call it, and do something about it, there's a damn good chance it's going to kill you. You're going to die from it, because our ego, our phony self, like the man says, is out to kill us because we're so worried about what people are going to think of our authentic self. So yeah, man, I'm so grateful to be my authentic self. Like I said on this podcast, yeah, my old radio, TV life kicks in sometimes when I'm talking about certain, we're going to talk about the news here. And it's like, I've become that news guy in the news today. And I try not to be that way. I try to just have a discussion and be my authentic self. And I think I've done a pretty good job of it with this podcast. And hopefully you agree too. So anyhow, we got 3 stories in the news today. Let's talk about the first one. This fucking blows my mind. Okay. Because Dean, we've had good discussions about the news topics on this show that, okay, the first wave of the opioid epidemic was when the Oxycontin hit the fucking market. And specifically where you're at in Central Florida there, Dean, we had these pill mills. That was kind of the first wave of it, man, where they were literally selling these fucking opioid pills right out of these clinics. You didn't even have to go to the fucking pharmacy, man. The doctor would prescribe them in the clinic, the pill mill pain management office, and fucking you could get the pills right there. So the opioid crisis itself was kind of the first wave. Then the second wave came when they cracked down on the pill mills, and it became harder and harder for people to get them. So the heroin craze came. Heroin's always been a thing going back to way back, but then heroin use and ODs were on the rise. That was the second wave of the opioid crisis because they cracked down on, the flood of the pills. So people start turning to heroin, just like what happened to me when I was snorting heroin at the end of my fucking opiate addiction because I couldn't get the pills and I'd get dope sick. And the dope man would say, well, hey, Glenn, we're supposed to get the pills in a couple of days. If you don't want to get sick, here's some heroin to hold you over. I never thought in a million fucking years a guy like me, from, like we say, the professional world, radio, TV guy, director at a multi-million-dollar company, be fucking snorting heroin, especially after everything I know and knew about addiction and that shit out there killing people and every other fucking thing in the long history with me in 12-step programs and everything else. But that shit had me, man. It had my thinking so hijacked and my physical health so hijacked that I couldn't fucking handle going through the withdrawals that I did it. And that's exactly what happened with the second wave of the opioid crisis as people start getting cut off on getting their pills. When they shut all them pain pill mills down, they turn to heroin. Well, then the third wave of the opioid crisis is the fentanyl. Now, all of a sudden, fentanyl became a thing, and they're lacing the heroin with fentanyl, and they're making fake pills with fentanyl, and people are using them, thinking they're getting the real thing and fucking dying. Well, now, and we've talked about that for the past year on this podcast. Well, now, and this story just came out, y'all, they're calling it the fourth wave of the opioid epidemic, is now they're finding people who die from ODs, and the drugs they're confiscating are mixed with all kinds of other shit, not just fentanyl, okay? Now they're finding increase in methamphetamine and or cocaine being mixed in with the heroin, in addition to the fentanyl, by the way, y'all. And you can see, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but you go back and read it anytime. The latest wave involves using multiple substances at the same time, combining fentanyl mainly with either methamphetamine or cocaine. And this dude that they quoted here, he says he's yet to see it peak. And then it goes on and quotes all these different numbers and shit. But it's just like, oh, my God, I say it on this podcast over and over that if you think this opioid crisis is getting better, you are badly mistaken. If you think the things that we've done and these multi-million, billion-dollar settlements with the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma and all the fucking rest are making a difference, not yet, they ain't. Not yet. There's now a fourth wave of this opioid epidemic where, people are lacing all this shit with all these other additional drugs. And, here is another part of the article where it says, and I thought this was quite interesting. I happen to agree with this. It's an interesting take on it. It says, in the illicit drug industry, suppliers are the controllers. It may not be that people are seeking out methamphetamine and fentanyl, but rather that they're what the drug suppliers have found to be the easiest and most lucrative product to sell. So I 100% agree with that. And then, again, I don't want to read the whole thing, but it says the drug cartels are kind of realizing that it's a lot easier to have a 500 square foot lab than it is to have 500 acres or whatever it takes to grow the coca plants and process the cocaine. So now it's like addicts are at the mercy of what the illicit drug industry supplies. And so now, yeah, man, there's this whole fourth wave of things going on. So if you're a person that came across our podcast, you're trying to get clean, you're trying to kick, just one more good example of why now is the time, man. Now is the time to kick. Quit saying I'm going to kick tomorrow, next week, next month, whatever. No, do it fucking now, because like the saying is, one pill can kill. And this is a prime example of it, man, is the drug dealers are lacing that shit with every other fucking thing they can. And, Dean, you've said it on this podcast before, like, well, but doesn't that go against the number one rule of, don't kill your best customer? But what's going on is these dealers want the dope to be the good, like theirs is given the best buzz, so people come back to get more. But they're no pharmacists. They're mixing this shit up in the kitchen sink thinking, well, if we put a little meth in there and a little fentanyl, our shit will be better, and then we'll corner the market and all that other shit, and people are fucking dying. So anyway, y'all, here's some more information on the whole thing. They break it down a little bit more. They did this study, and they found all these different things. And I just thought it was interesting that last sentence of that top paragraph on the right. This is pretty mind blowing. It's talking about cardiovascular and psychiatric risks, and that they found 60% of fentanyl positive tests just last year in the drugs they analyzed. Let me just go back and read this so I'm giving you the correct information. Methamphetamine, a highly addictive drug, often in powder form, that poses serious cardiovascular and psychiatric risk, was found in 60% of fentanyl positive tests last year. So there you go. I don't like reading to y'all, but I want to give you the accurate information. And then this last line is what blows my fucking mind. That is an 875% increase since 2015, which really wasn't that long ago. So yeah, man, just keeps getting worse. Let's move on. Okay, here's another example of what we just talked about. And this was a long article in the Michigan Health Watch, but I just thought we'd show this headline here as almost to reiterate the story we just watched or talked about. Meth makes a big comeback in the state of Michigan. By the way, that last story was from Oregon. This is from Michigan. Meth makes a comeback in Michigan, even as the drug fight focuses on opioids. And you can see this lady's here holding a picture. It says, I lost my brother on a nasty hotel floor. And he was one of 28 people who died from 2020 to 2023 in Monroe County, which is a metro area of Detroit, with methamphetamine in their blood. And so it's just another example of exactly what I just talked about, y'all, how, this fourth wave of the opioid epidemic is now that they're lacing these opiates with not just fentanyl, but meth and cocaine, by the way, too. So not going to spend a lot of time talking about this tonight, y'all, because this is a controversial topic. I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we haven't gotten much shade or hate thrown our way for what we're doing. There's always fucking haters out there, whatever. Like I said, man, this podcast ain't for everybody. If somebody's that caught up in it and watching it and listening that closely that they got to start throwing shade or hate our way, hey, more power to you. And I didn't really get hate. We've talked about kratom in depth on this podcast, and I've talked about how I personally used kratom to help me through the opiate withdrawals successfully. It was almost like a godsend to me. I'm not recommending or telling anybody to try or do kratom. I'm not telling anybody not to. I'm sharing what my experience was and what I did for me. I was that fucking close, y'all, to going on Suboxone, which we've talked about in great detail on this show. I was that close to thinking about going on methadone because I was trying to kick and I just couldn't fucking do it. I couldn't get through the withdrawals. And like I said, I was researching information online on YouTube, and I came across, I'd never even fucking heard of kratom before. Now it's like everywhere. You see it, you're driving down the road at all these different head shops and different things. And the reason it is so popular and common and available now is because of the opioid epidemic, because it's not an opiate, but it can help subside some of the withdrawal symptoms. I'm no scientific person, no medical expert, nor would I ever claim to be. My understanding with everything I've read about it and my personal experience with using it is basically it tricks the opioid receptors in the brain to thinking that you have ingested an opioid, but it's not. Like it says at the top, the herbal substance kratom, derived from the leaves of a Southeast Asian tree, is used by nearly 2 million people in the United States annually. And there's a shit ton of information out there all about kratom, y'all. If it's something that you're interested in finding more out about, go online, look it up, read everything about it you can get your hands on, watch as many videos as maybe you could watch about it. And then I will make one recommendation about kratom before we move on to this next topic. Is you can see there's pictures of some of the different brands and different kinds. There's different strains of it and everything else. It says here, proponents say it provides pain relief and has the potential to treat opioid use disorder. Hello. But it also may cause overdoses, severe withdrawal symptoms, and other health issues. And I mentioned that we got some shade, and, it wasn't in a mean, nasty, or evil way. It was a person who contacted us that said they lost their son to a kratom overdose, that they used it improperly and they did not react to it well, and it killed them. Of course, that's a horrible thing. Of course, we feel horrible to hear something like that. What I'll say is that my response to that is, what is the lesser of two evils? There's risks with any medication. Have you watched a medicine commercial on television lately? They talk all about the benefits of it, and they show the happy family or whatever and the whole 9 yards. And then at the end, they run through all these fucking side effects at 90 miles an hour in 30 seconds. May cause suicide, may cause this, may cause that, may cause all these fucking health issues associated, the risks with using a particular medication. And so what we say about kratom, y'all, is, what's the lesser of two evils? Fentanyl's out there killing everybody. There's a goddamn risk to that. Oxys, perks, fucking Norcos, Vikes, whatever the fuck you want to call them. And there's a risk with kratom too. Just like there's a risk with alcohol. Fucking alcohol, like we've talked about on this podcast, gets a fucking free pass in our society. They get to advertise all over TV and, it's Miller time, this bud's for you, and all that other bullshit. They don't talk about all the motherfucking people killed in DUI crashes, dying of cirrhosis of the liver and all that other shit. Point I'm making is there's risks involved with everything, including alcohol, including kratom. Okay, so what is the lesser of two evils? There is a big risk. And so the one suggestion, like I said, I was going to make about kratom, if after doing your research, which I highly recommend if you're thinking about using it to kick opiates, is don't buy that shit at a fucking gas station, because you will see it at gas stations. It'll be on some little rack with fucking dust on it because it's been sitting there so long or whatever the fuck. That shit'll make you fucking sick. If you're serious about trying to kick opiates and you want to try kratom, go to a vitamin shop that carries it, where it's moving. They'll talk to you openly about the risks and the potential benefits of it. They'll talk to you about the different strains of it. Now, I'll say this. I've said it on this podcast before. I don't understand people using kratom on a regular basis. For whatever reason. Maybe they weren't even an opiate addict. They just started using it for the mild euphoric effects of it, for the energy they say they get from it. There's some what they call kratom bars now, where you can go get a kratom smoothie or juice or whatever the fuck. That ain't me. For me, it was all about what is your intent with potentially using kratom. My intent was to help me get through those horrible fucking opiate withdrawals. And guess what, y'all? It helped. It definitely helped. I read this when I was, doing my research about using it. And believe me, I used kratom several times before I used it to get through the withdrawals when I finally kicked. I used it when I couldn't get no fucking dope and I was dope sick, so I could fucking at least muster up enough energy to go into work or do whatever the fuck it was I needed to do, even though I was still sick. Point I'm making is it did help take the edge off of those opiate withdrawals. And something I read at that time said that for the average person, it might take about 70% of the withdrawal symptoms off, depending on how much you've been using, how long you've been using opiates. Where I was at in my life and my journey, it did take about 70% of the withdrawal symptoms away. Now, one thing I will say, man, and again, I'm putting my disclaimer. I ain't no fucking medical expert. I ain't giving no fucking medical advice, nothing. I'm sharing my experience, and what my research found was that be fucking careful with your dosage. Obviously, if you're going to try it, start off as low as you can and then slowly inch your way up till you find out the amount that works for you. So yeah, God bless the poor kid that passed away using kratom, but we don't know the whole story. Maybe he had a fucking allergic reaction to it. Maybe he started off at a dose that was too high. Maybe he got a hold of some bullshit from a gas station that had been sitting on the shelf for 2 fucking years with dust all over it. We don't know. And maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe it was good kratom and he just had a reaction to it that killed him. And that's horrible. We hate hearing something like that. I'll also say we don't want to discount kratom altogether and make it illegal for everybody, because it has been a factor in the death of some people. And when you dig deeper into a lot of those cases, y'all, it wasn't just kratom in their system. There were other things that contributed to their death as well. So, obviously I'm treading here cautiously. Personally, I'm a proponent of it. And by the way, incidentally, if you research and dig deeper into it, you'll find that the legit kratom companies, the legit ones, they are all for regulation. They want regulation because it's taken such a bad, there's really no regulation over it. Some cities, some municipalities, some areas, whatever, have outlawed it. And no fucking kratom. We don't want kratom. It killed that kid. Meanwhile, people are dying from opiate overdoses left and right when the kratom might have helped them if it was regulated properly. So I don't know, man. I don't want to keep going. I said I wasn't going to go on and on about it. I did a little bit longer than I had planned on, but it pops it. This isn't like any earth-shattering news that we're talking about here. It's just that this story came up in the news again this week in this Philly media outlet called The Voice, a healthier Philly, and I couldn't help but notice it because I follow the opioid crisis in the news, and anytime there's a new story, I get it. And so this one came up that said nearly 2 million Americans are using kratom yearly, but it is now banned in multiple states. Like I was saying, different places, different municipalities, states, whatever, are banning. And I think they're jumping the gun when it is, not could be, is in fact a potentially life-saving substance that absolutely should be regulated more, not just banned, almost like a knee-jerk reaction when we got people fucking dying left and right from fentanyl, and now this fourth wave of the opioid epidemic we just talked about in the news, where the dope's being laced with fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, and every other goddamn thing. And here's something that is literally saving lives, helped save yours truly. And I think because of some uneducated so-called lawmakers or whatever the fuck, knee jerk and ban something that is literally helping save people's lives because they don't have the whole story. So anyhow, I'll come down off my soapbox, yeah, y'all. But I saw kratom in the news again this week. couldn't resist talking about it. If you're someone struggling with an opioid addiction, you're trying to kick, you don't want to go on subs, you don't want to go on methadone, I'm not telling you to try kratom. I'm not telling you not to. I would suggest you read about it, watch as many videos as you can watch about it, get yourself educated, and then make an educated decision on whether or not you think it's something you might want to try or something that maybe could help you save your life. So let's move on, y'all. Yeah, there's more information on that one. So this story caught my attention. It's, a story from NPR about how Portugal, the country of Portugal, has eased its opioid epidemic, while here in the U.S., the deaths have skyrocketed. And so, we've talked about this on this podcast before, that even in different states around the United States, they have controlled environments for drug use, illegal drug use, by the way. And that's what's happening here. And it says, an opioid crisis and a pivot toward healing. And so it asked the question. This was a long article, by the way, y'all. I just thought we'd show part of it. It says, what's different in Portugal? And in the late 1990s, the country faced an explosion of heroin use, and the drug was causing roughly 350 overdose deaths a year and sparked a wave of HIV, AIDS, and other diseases linked to dirty needles. Well, then they started, endorsing these controlled drug use facilities. And as it says here, the contrast with the U.S. is striking, which I don't think any of us can disagree with. As we've talked about on this podcast many times, here in the U.S., according to some of the latest stats, ODs are common, killing roughly 112,000 people a year. Think about that, y'all. There's only 365 days in a year. How many people already died today because of a drug overdose? So meanwhile, in Portugal, y'all, they've got these controlled environments where people can go get their drugs tested to see if they're laced with fentanyl, use it in a controlled environment. There's advisors there who can encourage them to go into treatment, give them information. They have good programs for people. And, it works, is what we're saying. It works. It has drastically cut down on the number of overdoses and eased, as it says here in the headline, the epidemic. And like I said, y'all, this is a very long article, and they quote this guy, that they got a picture of here, the general of the Directorate for Intervention on Addictive Behaviors and Dependencies. Yeah, they got a director for that in Portugal who oversees this. And this article provides some really good information. And so, man, when we start trying to talk about solutions on this program, things, whether it's being your authentic self, letting go of the ego and, oh God, what's everybody gonna fucking think of me, and the whole stigma, when we talk about things like kratom, and then talk about things like this, an unusual program that works. That's what we're trying to do here, y'all, is try to talk about things that are part of the solution. Yeah, we talk a lot about the fucking problem. We also try to talk about the solutions on this podcast too. And this clearly is one that I think we need to take a closer look at here in the United States, and not just automatically knee-jerk to things, just like with the kratom, of banning and outlawing it, or these harsh penalties for people that use drugs, instead of treating them like hardened criminals rather than people who are sick that need help. Yes. So there you go, y'all. That's the opioid crisis in the news. This show's almost over, y'all. We're going to bring it full circle. I got one quick shout out and then a few funny memes. Hope you enjoyed today's content. Shout out to that boy G again in the chat room, who said the videos are cracking him up. And yeah, man, I'm glad you said that, bro. And hopefully anybody else who comes across them will maybe get a laugh out of them too, because they are humorous if you're open-minded to that kind of humor. You know, like I said, they're laced with lots of cursing and swearing and all, but who can't relate to that? You know, God, if that's not anything you can relate to, I don't know what lily white suburb you've been living in Rockford, or what's it called? Stepford Wives community or whatever the fuck. Talk about phony. Oh my God, that shit is not authentic. If you've never seen the Stepford Wives, there's a couple of them out there. One from way back when, and then they did another version of it. I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever. But the point I'm making is, y'all, hopefully those videos were humorous and funny for anyone who you know, watches this show and sees what we did with them. But the point of them, again, to recap, was trying to just demonstrate, man, that it's so important, I think, for all of us to be our authentic self for a variety of reasons. So anyway, want to do a shout out to one of my best buddies from way back in the day. There's a picture of him, my friend Pete Falk. Shout out, Pete. I hope you get to see this, bro. I'm going to have to make a reel or a clip of this portion of the show to send to him, because, again, as I said before, y'all, I know we go long. Sometimes people don't always see the whole show. But there's a picture of me and Pete at an event I went to last summer up in Detroit, Michigan, the Jamie Daniels Foundation, and we did a whole couple episodes talking all about that event. If you're interested, I highly encourage you go to the Dare Me Podcast YouTube channel, click on the videos tab, and scroll down. All the episodes are there, and you'll see one, Detroit versus Everybody. We talk about the Jamie Daniels Foundation quite a bit in that one. And then the following week, it's called Back from the D. Yeah. And, we did a real deep dive into this event that Pete and I went to together. We've been friends since we were little kids, like 12 years old, and we hadn't seen each other in, God, I don't know, 35 years or whatever the hell it was. And we reconnected last summer and went to this event together. And I couldn't help but do a shout out because Pete posted this just this past week. He is a very, very talented musician and plays the drums. He's a rock and roller, man. And boy, I remember going to some of the gigs Pete did back when we were younger, man, and all. And man, I'm just so happy to see he's back out there doing it. And he posted that he's playing in this Bob Seger tribute band called Fire Lake. And they did a gig in the city I used to live in, actually, called Taylor, which is kind of sort of on the border of downriver Detroit, they call it. Never really thought of Taylor as downriver. You got to get a little deeper down, Wyandotte down there, but they consider it downriver. Anyhow, there's this spot called the Road Rangers Music Venue, and they did a gig there, apparently, last night. But the point I'm making is Pete's playing in this band now, and so I would imagine they'll be doing lots of other gigs around the Metro Detroit area and wherever else they might end up. So I sent a message. I said, oh my God, man, I'm so glad to see Pete's out there rocking and rolling again. And I can't wait to, come back and go visit in Detroit and hopefully be able to see one of the gigs they're doing. So again, shout out to my buddy Pete Falk, one of my longest friends, and what a great guy, man. Oh my God, him and his whole family. Shout out, Pete. Okay, y'all, let's move along to the end of the show. We always like to end on a little humorous note because we obviously talk about some very serious topics on this show having to do with the opioid epidemic, the amount of people dying from overdoses and every other damn thing. We had some humor tonight with those videos, but anyhow, y'all, I come across different memes like everybody else on social media all week long, and when I see some that get my attention, I capture them. And so tonight we got just a few. Here's one that I thought was kind of, apropos to our show. And we talk about, drinking, using, and addiction. At a wedding party recently, someone yelled, all married people, please stand next to the one person who has made your life worth living. And the bartender was almost crushed to death. Now, to me, that's funny. Obviously, this is meant to think, that, the wives or the husbands would rush to stand next to each other, but they all ran to the bartender. Here's one that, oh my God, could I relate to? Obviously there's Vin Diesel from the movies Fast and Furious, Vin Diesel, and it says the plug, which for those who don't know, that's your drug dealer. Come through, but you got to be here in 10 minutes or else I got to go. And it says me outside 4 minutes and 37 seconds later, and oh my God, any real dope fiend, if you a real one, you know exactly what this is talking about, man. And then you get there, and I noticed somebody put in the comments, yeah, and he still left already. Oh, how many times that fucking happened? And I say it a lot, man. When I sometimes share at meetings, I'll start off, I'll say, hey, my name's Glenn, I'm an addict, and I am grateful to be here tonight. I'm grateful I ain't dope sick right now. And then I'll say, and I'm also grateful I ain't out chasing one on a Sunday night at 9:20, right? And, you know, or whatever time or day it may be. Point I'm making is, man, when you're caught up in that shit, oh my God, the chase is horrible. You're always stressing about having enough, running out. When's the next one coming in? Having to swallow your pride to get it from the dope man and all that other shit. And oh man, every fucking time the phone rings or a text comes in, you get that sinking feeling in your stomach because you waiting for the next batch of the good to come in. And oh my God, you're like glued to your fucking phone because you're waiting. You know, and oh my God, when shit would come in and the dude would say, bro, I got shit to do tonight. You want to get this? You need to be here in 10 fucking minutes. I don't give a fuck what you're doing. You will drop everything, lie through your teeth to your boss, your old lady, your old man, your kids, your whoever the fuck. I literally drove through a hurricane. I swear to God, I shouldn't be laughing because it ain't really funny. I did, though. I drove through a fucking hurricane in Florida to go get dope, y'all. It wasn't like this Cat 5 hurricane and fucking crazy. But yeah, it was hurricane force winds and rain going on outside, y'all. And the dope came in. And I drove all the way from where I was living in fucking Northwest Orange County all the way over to fucking Volusia on the coast to get this fucking dope. And so all I'm saying is, oh my God, I saw this meme and it just made me grateful, man. I'm so fucking grateful I ain't chasing that shit no more. And so if you are a person watching or listening to this podcast, you came across our shit by chance, you're still hanging with us, watching or listening to this show, and you're wanting to kick, you're wanting to get clean, man. Here's another reason. Believe me, the freedom of not having to chase that shit anymore. Oh my God. Some days, y'all, it ain't even about going to no fucking NAAA 12-step meetings. It ain't about peace, love, and happiness and being joyous and free and all that other shit. Some days I have a shitty day, and you know what keeps me clean is remembering I don't want to fucking be dope sick or have to start chasing that fucking shit again. And you know what? If that's what it takes to get you through one more day clean, then more power to you, man. Some days that's how it goes. You know, most days I'm living in peace and happy, joyous, and free, working a program, all that stuff. But some days, reminders like this is what it takes to keep me clean, y'all. So anyway, moving along. This is our last slide, y'all. I just thought this was funny. Because sometimes, man, we do lose our temper. We get pissed off as a motherfucker. We want to take somebody out. And this one said, the invention of archery. Man, I really want to stab this dude, but he way the fuck over there. I'm sorry, I crack myself up sometimes. So, yeah, I just thought this was funny, man. The invention of archery. Dude wanted to take somebody out, but they were way the fuck over there. But hopefully, anyways, that's not where you're at in your life today. You know, I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. But like I just mentioned a minute ago, y'all, I try to maintain peace in my life. And most days I do. You know, I have, like what I've said on this show many times, I have my program and I have my recovery. You know, I'm a 12-step guy. We didn't really talk much about, you know, the 12-step programs tonight, man. But if you're trying to get clean, do your research. If you've never been to a meeting before, you can attend a NA or AA meeting right online. You don't even have to show up in person. Read about it. Google NA meetings in your area. Guarantee you'll find one, man. You click on the link and you don't even have to show your face. You can sit there and listen, decide if it's right for you. It ain't the be all to end all. Wish it was that easy that you just start going to meetings and all of a sudden you're happy, joyous, and free and your life is good. It's not that easy. There's work to be done. You got to go through the hell of the withdrawals. But the point I'm making is, if I can do it, if all the others that we've talked to and had as guests on this podcast can do it, you can do it too if you really want to. And on the other side is waiting that peace we talked about for you, that sense of humor, that opportunity to be your authentic self. How's that for wrapping up this show with the topic that we kind of tried to focus on tonight? Yeah, the freedom of not having to live a double life anymore and be that phony that guy talked about in that one video, and the freedom and the peace that comes with it of being your authentic self. Dare you? All right, y'all. That'll do it for another edition of the Dare Me podcast, episode 50 now in the can. We got 2 more to go for the Dare Me 1.0 version, where we did it live all this past year. We're going to do another episode from, the studio here in Sacramento next week. Of course, Dean will be there live in Orlando. And then the following week, y'all, we're going to go live from Honolulu, Hawaii, for the final edition of Dare Me 1.0 podcast. And then we're going to take a break for a little while and regroup. And then we'll be coming back with the Dare Me 2.0 version. And there'll be recorded versions of the show. And we're going to really do all we can to keep them condensed to a 1-hour edition of the show, packaged up and boxed in a nice little package and a ribbon and bow. But in the meantime and in between your toes, we got 2 more live shows that anything can happen on. Like we always say, anything can happen live. We never put a time clock on them. We just kind of go till we run out of gas. And we got 2 more just like that coming up, one next week, and then the following week live from Honolulu, Hawaii, which incidentally, as I mentioned earlier on the show, is going to be a very special episode of the show, because in addition to being our final episode of this first Dare Me 1.0 show that we've been doing for the last year, it will also be my 3-year clean anniversary. 3 years from the last time I put an opiate in this fucking body. And oh my God, I'm so grateful to all of you who've been part of my journey with this podcast and my healing process all along the way. And I'm sure that night too, we'll probably have several callers and maybe even hear from some of the guests that we've had on over the past year, and maybe even some special surprises. We'll see. It's going to be a fun show that night. Live from Honolulu, Hawaii, 2 weeks from tonight. But again, we'll be back next week with episode 51 as well. So with all that said, let's bring that boy Dean Baker back on one more time. Dean, thank you again, as always, for holding it down live there in Orlando, Florida. As always, man, just want to ask, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
No, good show. Good show.
All right.
Lots of news.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, too much news.
Yeah. Every week there's always something new. Yeah. Well, bro, like I said, I appreciate it, Dean. Appreciate the working relationship we have. You're a rock star holding it down. Everyone else, want to thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you and see you next time on the Dare Me podcast. So long.
Good night.